Yes. Anyway, we are back for another episode of Where Heartbreak Feels Good, a definitely podcast about stories that may or may not feel perfect and powerful. And we are back specifically for another episode of A Talk with Dragons, where we're gonna discuss episodes 6 through 10, most notably probably the finale, since that's the freshest things on our minds right now. And joining us today is my co-host Evan.
Glad to be here. Yeah, I had so much fun doing episode 1 through 5 with you. Great idea by you. And I'm excited to talk about episodes 6 through 10. A lot of stuff happened. War is afoot. I'm excited to break it all down with our other special guests.
Yeah. And another one of our co-hosts who is probably unfortunately here because he hasn't seen the finale for some reason, but he showed up. So anyway, here's Sean.
Hey, so I'm literally watching the finale as we speak. So I will be watching that right now, and then I will come back to all of you with
All right.
my detailed analysis of the episode. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your
Bye.
update.
Thanks,
Bye.
Joe. Bye. Bye. So professional. We really
So
get the best
professional.
ones here.
Yeah, I know. Josh always like decides to leave when we need him, and like when he gets pissed off when we're late or whatever. But anyway, joining us another member of My Cup of Tea and Hyperspace Hype is Carson.
Hey, good to be back. 2 episodes in a row. What podcast? Where are my allegiances? Team Hyperspace, team where Heartbreak Feels Good. I don't know. We'll find out by the end of episode 10, maybe. Yeah, it's great to be back, and I held out, did not watch the leaks, and I'm excited to get into all the episodes building up to this, because sadly, that's all we can do now that we have to wait 2 years.
2 years.
Pain.
But anyway, you know them. They've been here on the show. They were here for the Pixar episode. You might know them from Mile High Cinema or Skywalking Through the League. It is Trey and Jess.
Thank you for the shout out. You want to say anything?
No.
I just want to say Sean will never escape the soup's allegations. I thought he was gonna watch and react to House of the Dragon live on air and just scream no, oh my god, and just go all soups. But yeah, happy to talk about this. Jess is a big fan.
We have done our homework today. We have actually
watched the
episode.
finale. Yeah.
That's the only requirement, and one of our own didn't do the homework. But yeah, like I know that we have you guys, you, Jess, and Trey, for Borrowed Tie. So I kind of wanted to start with you guys. Any favorite moments, characters, anything that you want to talk about that happened throughout these episodes between 6 and 10?
That's a big question. I guess I've really enjoyed like digging deep into like the characters, like the little things that motivate what they actually do in the show, because I haven't read the books. I have been lightly listening to the audiobook, so I'm not like a fully book reader, but I know like the structure of it and how it's like not as detailed, so the show gives you like that deeper look into, like, for example, at the end with Aemond, now you know, like, maybe that wasn't on purpose. Is he going to like put that off as if it was on purpose and be like, yeah, I did that? Or is it going to be like it was Vagar's fault?
Mom,
Yeah.
I can explain.
That's what I was thinking after watching that scene, because like he's like, I don't want to say like a straight copy, but he kind of is a copy of Damon, and Damon also has that
He wants to be
personality.
Damon so bad.
Yeah, and Damon is like, if you blame him for something, he's not gonna deny it. He's just gonna be like, okay, yeah, sure, I did that. And that's kind of what I'm thinking Aemon is gonna go in season 2.
Mhm.
So there's that.
I'm the same way. I think that's how they'll write Aemon, because even for like Rhaenyra and Daemon, they're going to believe he did it purposefully. So to have him be like, no, let me explain, it just wouldn't make any sense. I think even as a character, I think Aemon, like the other High Towers, they're going to commit. And he's going to commit to what he did and say, yeah, this happened and the war's afoot. So I think he'll really commit to it.
Yeah.
Carson, new member
Sorry,
joining.
Kelly is here. I had to go get a chair for her because I
How polite.
mistakenly set it up the wrong way.
brought his maiden.
But yeah, Kelly and I were yelling at the TV last night. Actually, we've been yelling the whole 10 weeks, or however long it's been.
Poor neighbors.
I know.
Honestly,
8 p.m. Central Time every night. Noise complaint.
the noise complaint from the old lady upstairs, who's literally the sweetest woman too. So she probably hates us on Sundays. Anyways, what were you guys talking about? I missed the
We're talking about Aemon's last scene, if he's going to commit or not to what he did.
Oh, Aemon. Did he mean to do it? Was he good at actually? He was just messing with him, right?
In the books, he meant to do it. I don't know
Yeah.
about in the show.
Yeah, but I feel like he's gonna, it's somehow gonna affect his path, that when he's truly a villain, I feel like we're gonna sort of look back on that and see his character arc a little bit from that. Not necessarily be like, oh, I forgive you for doing these things later on. Edgar probably knows what happens. But
It's still his fault, though. He's the one that was
100%. He was
with...
tailing him.
Yeah.
He could have turned around when Lucerys dove under the rocks. He could have turned around, but he didn't.
Exactly. Yeah. I think Aemon's still at fault. So because of that, I think he'll commit to his action to be like, yep, this is what happened. They were going to do something anyways. It's only a matter of time. So, yeah, it doesn't matter.
The memes were excellent.
The memes are incredible.
The memes are always excellent. But going back
My
to you, Trey,
favorite-
oh, go for it. Go
Sorry,
for
I
it.
was just gonna say my favorite meme was the one about Baratheon being like Leah Michelle.
Yeah, they
My
can't read
favorite
one.
one.
Just didn't read the note.
That was great.
Of course, a Baratheon can read. But anyway, what I was gonna say, Trey, I know this was your first experience with this world. I kind of wanted to ask you, like, overall thoughts. How did it feel like being welcomed by this world with the show?
There are a lot of people, like there are a lot of names that mean things, or like places that mean things, and it's a bit overwhelming at first because Jess is like, this is this guy of house this, and I'm like, oh my god, they're all
Like Winterfell,
and-
the big deal.
I'm like, wait, he's like marrying his cousin. Like, what? This is confusing. But no, this season was really cool. The characters were good. I remembered most of their names, which was good. I thought Rhaenyra was probably my favorite character. All of it, although Daemon was really cool too. Viserys also, like every time that he was on screen, I like felt there was like gravitas to it, and I really cared what he was saying, especially that I don't know what episode it was, but sort of the Thanksgiving where everyone's sitting around the table.
Episode 7.
I thought that was like really,
Last
really
Supper.
good. Yeah.
8.
You just see like all the dynamics between like,
Great.
I guess the greens and blacks, and it was just like a kettle of tea about to like explode kind of thing. But yeah, it was good. I definitely will watch all of Game of Thrones. I have 2 years between seasons, so
Plenty of
I
time.
think I'll hopefully do it.
Yeah.
I think episode 8 for me might be my favorite of the series.
It is
just
my
for that
favorite,
dinner
yeah.
scene alone, I'm like, this is just incredible work here.
Yeah.
Patty
His
had a great
walk-
arc there.
To the Throne's probably my favorite moment of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many
Looked
good
like
scenes.
Harvey Dent a little bit, Two-Face. When he took off that mask.
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera.
One of the only things for me that this show, it's not that they didn't work, it's just like it felt very jarring. And I'm trying to go back in time and to the very beginning, episode 6, with a big 10-year jump between episode 5 and 6. And for me, like, one of the things that really, it's not that it doesn't work, it's just like you kind of wish that there was more to it, is the entire relationships between like Daemon and Lena, Rhaenyra and Sir Harwin. And we've talked about it kind of already, Evan,
Yeah.
in the last episode. But,
I needed more Harwin, honestly.
The show
Yeah, you-
needed desperately more Harwin. I mean, not just for like as a
It
fan
needed more
perspective.
warmth.
They
Like,
didn't have
Yeah.
any like camera off moments. Like it was just
No.
like them acting formal in front of their kids, and then he had to go, and then it was like, oh,
And then he's
That's
dead.
it.
said,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
when
like,
he
were we
died,
supposed to
I didn't
care?
feel
you didn't
Yeah.
feel bad.
I was more shocked that Laris killed his own brother.
Yeah,
I
to
was like,
become the-
okay.
And father.
and father.
And father to move up the ranks.
Triple homicide. Yeah, that was
yeah, like if you
crazy.
saw more of that like relationship building, then his
Mhm.
death would have felt more important.
Yeah, and the only reason why you kind of feel it is because the actors are doing such a great job at like making you like these characters. Even Lena, who has even less screen time in the show, you still kind of care for her, especially like when she's like trying to like burn herself using Vagar and that stuff.
That one scene in the library is really good. I'm trying to remember. I think Damon
Elena and
is,
Damon.
yeah, he's reading something and sort of like at the point where he's like, we have a good life here. We don't need to get back into the thick of it. Look how far I've fallen, sort of thing. But now I'm sort of content. We have our kids, and she's like, well, I want to have my kids here. Like, you don't just get to make that decision for me. And of course, I think that in the same episode, we see her ultimately run out to her dragon. So I think that paid off really well, as tragic as it was.
Yeah, that was great stuff there. I mean, yeah, I think that was the only couple, not only, but the big weakness for House of the Dragon was those small things, like the Lena, the Harwin. Some of the strong stuff could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Some of the smaller character relationships didn't build as much as I wanted to, because a lot of the pacing they had to deliver on like the certain time skip. So they had to establish you where you were up until like I think episode 8, is where it got a little bit.
Or even
better.
the twin Kingsguard people, who one of them is like for the Greens, and then one of them eventually comes through and is for Rhaenyra, and he brings the crown in episode 10. Like, we get like half an episode of context when they're sort of like walking around and they're like, hey,
blah
blah, here's Aegon's
Eric
bastards.
and Arik,
Like,
you remember the difference between those two?
Yeah.
I think the difference between those characters is that one of their mustaches is like up and the other one is down. But other than that,
that'd be funny.
That's it.
Terrible. Yeah, like it's like those things where Otto is like, oh yeah, Arik, you've been Damon or you've been Aegon's like Kingsguard for so long. I'm like, has he? This is my first time seeing you, so I guess you're close. It's like one of those things you have to believe, but we're not getting shown, so we don't really care. Like even in this week's episode where you see Eric or Arik, whatever, whichever one gives the crown to Rhaenyra, I'm like, this is a sweet moment for Rhaenyra, but I have no idea who you are as a person. So it didn't really work for me there. But
yeah, it does go back to the nature about like them approaching episode 6 as a second pilot, because it feels like a lot of these characters are very disposable. They're just there for being plot devices, and they're just there. Goodbye, to the next thing, which is episode 7, the funeral of Lena. Probably one of the best moments of the entire season is that scene between Rhaenyra and Alicent in the, I don't even know what you would call it, like the Drift Throne Room or something like that. I don't remember what it is.
Driftmark Throne Room, I think, is apt. Yeah, the main hall.
Yeah, the main hall.
Oh,
that entire scene is incredible. This poor woman, like, she can't have a break. Like, and at the end of the day, she does have a point. The whole thing about like Rhaenyra always gets away with whatever she wants. She's right from that perspective, but she's taking it to another level, wanting to take a little kid's eye, even though it was an accident to begin with, but still.
Exactly. So much happened in that episode, and we talked about it in our episodes 1 through 5 thing, where Alicent was written so well in the sense that like she's doing everything she's supposed to. It's just like it's tormenting her psyche. It's like it's such a burden on Alicent. Rhaenyra's doing everything the wrong way, but we root for her because we like these people being proactive. We like seeing Rhaenyra have so much agency in her life. Meanwhile, Alicent's just like, well, I gotta marry Viserys, have 4 kids or whatever, do all this stuff, and Rhaenyra's just getting away with it. And then episode 6, like she has like Harwin Strong's kids, and she feels like she's being gaslit and just kind of erupts there. I really like seeing Alicent.
That's the other thing too, is the whole, going back to the point of stuff we didn't get to see, of like the whole King's Landing being redecorated in the religious stuff. We don't really see her go down that rabbit hole of like her trying to sort of like justify herself by clinging to that stuff, because she thinks she's morally right a lot of these times of, but then it all kind of comes collapsing, because when Viserys ultimately says like, he's talking about Aegon the Conqueror, not Aegon the the son.
Head.
I think she makes a conscious decision just to. She had to know, right? Like, I think she, like, for 2 seconds she knew, and then she believed she sort of shifted what she wanted to believe.
Like,
that's how I read that scene.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
It's what confirmation bias, you said?
Yeah.
Just like to, because I don't think she remembers like the one time he told her about a dream he had. So she
In
probably
episode
just
2,
like,
yeah.
okay, I'll interpret this how I want because I
Yeah.
don't really
Even
Not to
more-
mention, she
Yeah.
in the scene when she goes to meet the small counselor or whatever, they're already conspiring against her, and she's like, "Wait, no, wait a minute! I just brought this news. What do you mean that you've already been doing all of this behind my back?" So it's like a whole other layer there.
Oh yeah, that was really interesting. Where she's coming in with this whole big plan, and she's like so emotional. She's going about it from like the emotional
And
standpoint.
they saw no other way from the beginning. They
Yeah.
never ever
don't care. They
could
never
think
care.
that Rhaenyra could be on the throne. Not once.
Yeah.
Otto is the worst.
He is
Yeah.
the worst.
Otto and Kristen Cole are the two.
Oh, Kristen.
Every time they're on screen, I'm yelling at them. I want to punch them in
He
the
wasn't
face.
in the finale, right? I
Thank
didn't
goodness.
listen.
There was a
I
tweet
didn't see it.
yesterday. There was a tweet yesterday. The only thing this episode saved me up was having to see Kristen Cole's face because it's the one episode he's not in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it goes back to the whole Allison thing. Like, she thinks she's doing the right thing, but at the same time, like, girl, like, look who you're keeping company with. With like
Yeah.
Kristen Cole, Larry.
Yeah, he calls
Yeah,
Rhaenyra a
thing.
cunt. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, I mean, her son, who she calls like imbecile, you're no son of mine. It's the same person.
Cuts
she's
you in the
like-
carriage. Oh,
I
do you
know.
know everything that we prepared this day for you? Shut up!
Yeah.
You're a hypocrite.
It's so fascinating because she knows that going back to the whole Aegon's dream thing or Viserys' dream, it's like she knows Viserys has never said anything good about Aegon ever, and even Aegon knows that. He's like, "You really believe Dad would have said that about me?" I don't.
He's
really
asking,
believe
"Mom,
that."
do you love me?" I don't.
Yeah.
I don't
She's
care
like,
if
"Oh."
if a dad
And she
loves me.
doesn't say yes.
No, she doesn't. Because she knows she's a bad
Allison-
person, but she keeps on doing it.
Allison's not a good mom. I think that's a big thing. Like, look at Rhaenyra's
Yeah.
kids versus Allison's
Yeah, they have a
kids.
very different relationship.
And it's not even because of the
Mhm.
dad, because like, yeah, I mean their dad didn't really care about them, but like Harwin like was just absent in their kids' lives because obviously he died. But I think it stems from like the moms and like how they raised their kids and how Allison like was just she's not a good person. She's not a good mom. She lets her son be a rapist. Like the
Ugh.
other son like loses an eye and like she's more of like the controlling like burdening type of mother than the one who's like I care about you and I want you. Like she doesn't care about her kids. She uses them as like her pawns basically.
I like what you said there. It's very cyclical, and it's tragic because it's exactly what Otto did with her. For
Yeah.
Otto, Allison it was completely a
And he
pawn.
finally respects her for when he sees her as doing that.
I don't think
monster,
he
yeah.
even respects her still.
No, I don't
Like,
think he
even in episode
And-
9 last week when they're having the
That's true,
discussion
yeah.
over the tug of war with Aegon, and she's finally like, "Yeah, I've been used by you." She still is trying to get Aegon on the throne. She's still going along with Otto's plan in a way. It's like they're still on diverging paths, but Otto is still using her. Like Otto still didn't respect her with the Green Council, like we talked about. Like Otto is having plans behind her back for years, so he never really cared about her, even if she was queen consort. It didn't matter.
And his
Oh.
line to her when he was like, "You look like your mother," gave me
Oof.
the creepiest feeling. I'm like, don't say that. Like it's
It's-
like you can't explain it, but it's gross.
Yeah, it's creepy, and it's the same thing. Like the way he said, like, "You look just like your mother," as she's trying to tell him that she's having more agency. And it's the same person that said, like, "Oh, put on your mother's clothes, have sex with Viserys."
He started
episode
this whole
2.
domino effect, and that's
He
the
did.
tragic
And his
part
daughter.
of Allison is because she started as a friend of Rhaenyra. They were going through their struggles together, and in a sense, they still are. However, they've been whittled down by the men in their lives, and that's why I think makes Rhaenys's arc so interesting because she ultimately comes around on Rhaenyra, even though that she's given up hope in her own life in terms of that the queen that never was. That comes around, and it's so nice to see her supporting her in the end with Corlys and everybody. And I love that she brings what's the two daughters'
Baela.
name, Bela and
Rhaena.
she
Rhaena.
brings them up to the table. She recognized, and that's another thing where you can see she's sort of like that mother figure to everybody. Is that she brings them up to the table. She wants them to learn and not be so quote unquote unprepared by the time they sort of have their own responsibilities.
Exactly. It's very interesting. And like you said, like it goes from the fathers between Viserys and Otto and Rhaenyra and Alicent, And then the mother figure, like Rhaenyra and Alicent, especially Alicent, have like bred these children to fight, and they're carrying on like the blood and the fire, the pain of their parents. And look what happens. You get what happens in the finale. Like it's so tragic. Like it's all cyclical from the father to the daughters to their children.
Yeah.
In which they're carrying on this war that the adults have no chance of stopping, no matter what Rhaenyra or Alicent want. I still don't know why Alicent sent Otto in the finale to go talk to Rhaenyra. That was a horrible choice. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Because again, in episode 9, Alicent's
Maybe
like,
she wanted
Otto,
her dad dead low key. And
Maybe.
then like, oh.
maybe that would make the most sense.
I could see Otto not letting her though. I still think with everything you said, Evan, of like
yeah.
he
I think
he would be
wanted
like,
to go.
"You're not risking it," blah blah blah.
No,
True.
Sorry.
I think he wanted to go because he wanted her to refuse him. And who else
Ooh.
is she gonna refuse but him when he's coming
Very
up in there
true.
and be like, I have a proposition for you. She's gonna be like, I fucking hate you, Otto. Why would I accept this?
That's
so
fantastic.
I think that's why Otto went. Because
That's
he
a
didn't
great
want her
get.
to accept
And that, she rips that
I think
King's
The pin.
the pin off and throws it over the cliff.
yeah, he was like, hey, I like that one. But yeah, that was
He only had 3 chances or whatever, Otto.
I know, right? Yeah. Good luck. That's a great point, Kelly. 'Cause I like that. Where Otto, he's clever. He knows Rhaenyra, especially Daemon, are going to say, fuck off, dude. So I think he's definitely expecting to be turned around. He's kind of hoping that. Because, again, he wanted Rhaenyra dead. Alicent was the one that's like, let's give her a chance. Which is so weird because Alicent in the previous episode, episode 9, was like, I want Rhaenyra to go away, live in isolation or whatever like that. But then in this one, Otto comes in with a totally different plan where he's like, oh, you get to keep Dragonstone. Your children can be cupbearers or knights or whatever it was. I'm like, this is completely different from what Alicent said in episode 9, which again leads me to believe what's going on here.
Yeah, I have a question for you guys actually about that, the whole bridge scene.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think Alicent actually sent him with the page, or is he using it for himself as to manipulate Rhaenyra?
I think she sent it because she's pulling at their like childhood connection. Like it was probably the page when she like ripped out in the first episode or something. It reminds her that.
Yeah, it is.
I'm pretty sure it's from like the book they were studying.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so it like reminds her that, oh, you were my friend once, and this is war we're talking about. Like it's
not to mention, Rhaenyra in way back when didn't really want those responsibilities. She just wanted to, live nice and be friends with people. Essentially, like that's how naive they were back in the day, and it like sort of reminds them of like simpler times of like we don't have to kill all of our intertwined people over this.
That's the tragedy of it all. Back in the day, Rhaenyra was like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to be that woman to sit in the castle and have children. But then in the finale, she's having children, child that dies. She's married 2 times with
And
Harwin.
she saw her uncle in the moonlight.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
Like she's getting married. She's having multiple children. I think almost 6. And it's just like, it's tragic that she's reduced to these roles that she did not really want to have to happen. And then even in the finale, she's reduced to war, which she also didn't want to happen. So all these things keep burdening Rhaenyra. It's a very tragic arc she had in episodes 6 through 10. Because we see Rhaenyra in episode 1 through 5 having so much fun, at least until the dinner scene, or episode 5's dinner scene, or wedding. But then, like, now we have everything different.
I love it.
Beautiful. So yeah, I love Rhaenyra and what Emma brought to Rhaenyra, because I think contrary to what Millie had to bring to Rhaenyra, Emma brought a lot of like tragedy and like burden. Like she was order, of course, but she was also burdened in every single episode.
That whole quote last night in the behind the scenes about the goalposts of grief was so fascinating.
Oh yeah.
Like
really
if she knew Greece, like now she actually knows it with the death of Luke.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
And of
Which,
course
by
they
the way-
opened that episode with the scene of her and Luke.
Of Luke.
Yeah, my brother and I were like, is this a death flag? Wait, why am I getting death flags? I'm like, this kid is obviously going to survive until second
And he's
season,
so
right?
innocent.
I was like, there's
You're
no way
so
he
perfect,
dies.
Mom. Like, how am I going to be as good as you?
Oh
Blah,
my
blah,
God.
blah, blah.
I was
So
like, this is
I
red
knew-
flag.
I knew it was happening, and I'm like, I'm not a person that likes to spoil. Like some people like to spoil things, And so I'm like sitting there, I'm like, not gonna spoil it for Trey. And then they're like showing him like looking all young and stuff.
Then she starts crying.
I don't-
So I know that something's about to happen.
I didn't actually.
Yes,
cry.
you were. You're like maybe not like tears coming down your face, but you were huffing and puffing. And so I was like, okay, one of those kids is dying. And she was like, yeah.
I was so shocked because like usually I'm like paying attention to the clues, and there were so many death flags. I'm like Jalen and I'm like, one of these two kids may bite it.
The whole
And
Bible
I was
scene, dude. They're like swearing
Yeah,
to the
I'm
thing.
like,
I'm like,
we haven't seen this much Luke in a minute. Like, what's going on here? Like, this is. I'm getting.
When
I'm not happy.
They were fighting on the beach, and he was like kind of mad that, or I don't know if it was on the beach, but the older brother was mad that like the one who died couldn't kind of stand his ground. And I was like, oh, that's good. That's good foreshadowing.
His little baby, like his dragon was so,
It's so tiny.
small. I was
It's so
like,
tiny.
no.
Was his
It's
dragon
doing,
called
it's
Cyrax?
doing its best.
Rex.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With an A,
Yeah.
right?
Arax, yeah.
Yeah.
See, and
Oh,
Damon's
man.
like, we have so many more dragons. I'm like, the size of that one though, like, is like what, like 5
A
times?
chihuahua
Like,
comparison to the other ones.
well, they
Yeah,
have
that fire did like nothing. It was
they
like-
have what the second biggest one, but he is riderless because that was the old king's dragon. If
Yeah, Jaehaerys.
like Jaehaerys.
Jaehaerys'
Yeah, it
dragon.
went wild after
Yeah.
the.
So they
death
have
of
to
the king
get
or whatever.
him.
Well,
Or else
So
they're
is
fucked.
Damien gonna ride two like we? Because Kelly and I are talking about this. Like they set up that whole scene.
Let's
She's
go.
like, oh, he's like singing to it, going up to it. Like
He has a daughter that needs a dragon. Though.
that's true, but like who?
They should
She can't
recruit
ride that
all
big
of
dragon.
Aemon's like little bastards running around.
That'd be funny
Oh
as
my
hell.
god, you got white hair? Get over here. We need you.
That's crazy.
But yeah, to answer your question, like
Yeah.
basically Targaryens can only ride one dragon at a time.
That's what I thought, and I just wanted to ask because
Which is interesting that they finally confirmed what happened to Sea Smoke, and Sea Smoke's on Driftmark just chilling. I guess.
Mhm.
I'm like, we need you, buddy. Sea Smoke, get your ass over here. We need you. Like,
But
that's
Sea
so
Smoke's
weird.
gonna be like, he's not
Right,
dead.
yeah.
Like, does he think do dragons like sense that they're dead, or do they
I'm
just?
pretty sure just because like during the birth scene with Rhaenyra, like you can see like it's like cross
Yeah,
cutting
the
between
pain
her
going
and
back and
Cyrex.
That was
What about
weird.
Laenor's dragon?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
that's what I wondered. Too, is
Because
that-
Laenor is alive, so
He's alive, so what's
no
going to
one
happen?
can take over.
He
his
could come
dragon.
back in the next season. That'd be fun and surprising.
Yeah, the thing about that change is that again, not to go too much into spoilers, but he's actually dead in the books or allegedly
Yeah.
dead. But eventually, people from Essos start coming to see if they can ride dragons, so they could potentially change it to just Laenor coming back.
Just letting go. That would make much
Interesting.
more sense. But I'm just thinking, like, who's going to be strong enough to take down Aemon and Vhagar? I mean, Aemon's just like a normal guy; he can take it down. But Vhagar's huge. Like,
I feel like there's an obvious answer.
but Daemon's dragon, right? But
Probably.
But Daemon's like, I mean, what's Daemon? Cyrax, right?
Caraxes.
Caraxes.
That's a
Caraxes
cool
has seen a lot of war, so he has like, but Vhagar
got
has
the
seen
reps.
like everything. Vhagar is like destruction incarnate, so that's gonna be interesting. You need like
Vhagar's
5
a
dragons.
dinosaur. Like,
Oh,
Godzilla.
that was.
He
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
How old is Vhagar at
That's
this point?
scary.
I don't know.
How long
Oh wait,
did
Vhagar's a
how
girl.
long
I don't
did
know if
they
I
live?
said he, but she is.
Yeah, Grandma Vhagar.
Yeah, Edgar, how long do the dragons live?
I mean, as long as they want to, but Valerian, I want to say he was already big enough. Time they fled the Doom of Valyria, I think. I'm not exactly sure on the number, but I know that they can live not forever, but like for a really long time. So Vhagar is the second oldest dragon besides Valerian here in Westeros. So right now she is the oldest. The exact number, I don't know, but
That's
Dang, that's
interesting.
crazy.
There's so many old dragons out here. I can't wait, but I'm like, part of me doesn't want Aemon to die because I like Aemon as a character so much. He's so interesting. I liked when they walked into Storm's End, the way he just turned around with that strut. I'm like, you're trying too hard to be the villain, my guy. It's like, what
What
are
did you guys
doing?
think of his? Was it Sapphire Eye?
Ooh,
Could
yeah.
you tell that?
That was
That
cool.
was interesting.
That was
like-
His
beautiful.
little blue eye.
It's like a galaxy.
Yeah. he's still so upset about the lost eye. He was like, "To cut off your eye." I'm like, dude,
Yeah,
it's been
like, get
years.
over it.
Get over
You
over
it.
said you're
You're-
dragon. You said you got
especially-
a dragon out of it.
You got a
said
dragon
you're
out of
here.
it. You're the best warrior out of any of the kids.
Yeah.
You have the biggest dragon. What more do you need?
Why are you so
Needs an
upset,
eye.
dog? Yeah. Cut off your eye in front
You're
of the
so
kid.
insecure. Like,
I'm like, sir, your
Exactly.
mom did this like 3 episodes ago. Like, shut the fuck up. That didn't work then. Not gonna work now.
I'm like, hey man, come on, I like you, but what are you doing? If in front of the guy that he made a deal with a couple hours earlier. I'm like, if I'm Lucerys, I'm like, you wouldn't be friends with this guy?
that's the other thing.
Come
Do
on.
we think that guy just said, "Go ahead, Aemond, go out and ride your dragon"? Not in my halls, but yeah, go
Yes.
out there and chase him.
That's basically what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't. Why would he?
He's like,
do
I
that?
just don't want to be
So, well,
responsible.
it's
but
just
take it
shitty.
outside.
Because they're gonna have to deduce that too. Like, you fucking let him leave. Like, you're complicit in that. They.
Yeah, I hope
No.
that bitch dies. Fucking illiterate asshole.
I think also like the another factor in that little dynamic is that he's already, you can pretty much tell that he's already part of the Greens.
Oh yeah, he
So,
accepted the
if he-
deal the second
so-
they offered.
The only thing that he just doesn't want is that to like bloodshed to be like on his floor basically. So
Mhm.
if it's better for the little kid to die outside of his home, that's like a win already for them. That's one less dragon basically.
Yeah, it was a couple miles outside of Storm's End, so it didn't really count. Maybe it was outside of his jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But so Aemon's getting married to one of those three girls, right? One of those three daughters, or all three of them.
Problem.
I don't remember. I mean, I know who he eventually becomes like romantically involved. But I don't remember if it's like another Rob Stark type of scenario. If he gets to, he gets like betrothed to like somebody, but he ends up going for somebody else. So, you know.
It's crazy because
But-
Aegon and the sister are married. That's kind of skipped over a little bit. I mean, we see the kids and then...
Yeah, my dad had no idea until I told him like a couple hours ago. I was like, "Oh, you do know Aegon and Helena are married?" He's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
it's
it really
not
doesn't
really
show
brought
much of
up.
that.
And why
There's a
would
very
she-
brief exchange.
And why would
Yeah.
she do that? Like, wouldn't it be politically better to like marry the daughter and the like son off to like I don't know, like families that
Well,
Well,
because
that's what
they
Rhaenyra
want to
tried to do,
direct...
right?
They want a direct heir from Aegon
I guess
Yeah.
so.
yeah. I guess.
with all Targaryen blood.
But yeah, like Edgar said, like Rhaenyra wanted the better deal, right? You have like
Jason Helena,
Jason Helena, but
What
which would have
could
solved the
been?
entire problem.
They're
How many
dancing.
times during this whole thing there could have been so many deals? No.
no, because everybody's
And that's-
ambitions. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a bittersweet moment because then during the dinner scene in episode 8, you see them like dancing and like laughing to like at each other or
Oh.
whatever, and it's just like this is what we could have had.
that's
Okay, question on that. Question on that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Did they leave that dinner immediately? Because he dies that night, if I'm right, or does that cut some undiscriminated amount of time? Because I'm like, they're already gone by
I
morning.
don't think he dies.
Rhaenys is still in the castle, so I'm like trying to figure out the geography of it because I'm like, unless he
Yeah, I
did
think-
die that night.
It felt like
I
it was
think
that
he-
night.
Yeah, it was that
Yeah.
night. That's how it was like alluded to at least in the episode.
Because
What
I know
got-
King's Landing and Dragonstone are closer than I think, and I've learned that
Yeah.
this season. However, I'm like trying to figure it out because she has that scene right after the Aemond and Daemon stare down, and then they're talking. And they're like, "I'll come back on Dragonback. I'll go. I got to get the kids home. Yada yada." Then it cuts right to the bedroom scene. So I'm wondering, like,
Yeah, I think they just flew over a couple 30
Yeah, I
minutes.
think
drive.
we're supposed to assume that a few hours have gone by.
Okay.
Because he's like already changed from his clothes and everything. So
Mhm.
yeah,
I think going like away from that dinner for Viserys, he was like, "I did it." They're all happy
Totally,
because he
yeah.
went to bed
did it.
before like the fighting happened at the. So it was kind of like he's like, "Okay, I've made my peace. I can like rest finally and be with my wife Emma." And so I think he like got that peace and then let himself die, kind of. And so
He
yeah, I
was
think it
going
was
through
that
it.
night.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
he
it was
even-
like the final push, and then he's done.
he even says that after Damon chops off of Vaemon's head. When they're trying to like offer him like milk of the poppy, and he's like, "No, I have to settle some
No.
other things before I."
Wait, All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that not milk of the puppy? Isn't that what Josh thought it was for
Of the
10
puppy?
episodes? Milk of the puppy.
What?
Oh my
Not
gosh,
that?
milking dogs?
That's
Yeah,
dark.
Josh is a sicko.
That's sick shit.
Speaking
yeah,
of Josh,
oh wow.
get out of here.
But that Viserys scene is so tragic because Viserys is a guy who just doesn't do enough as king. Like he's Viserys the peaceful, but he just doesn't do enough, and it's tragically why like the wars and the conflicts are starting. 'Cause he's
And
not
why he
putting his
chose
foot
not to
down.
save Aemma in the first place. By the way, he gets this
Yeah.
immense pressure to create this legacy around himself, even though it's basically against everything that he sort of stands for. But the system just eats him up, and I love the indicative of the throne like cutting him and like like that whole thing is so interesting.
The throne's eating him alive psychologically, and his friends are just chomping at the bit. Like Otto, Thailand, everybody else is just like chewing off of his weakness.
I don't think that he was a good king because I think him choosing Rhaenyra as the heir and sticking with that fucks everything up.
Yeah, he was before his time. He couldn't be a good king this time.
No,
And
I think
he
he
wouldn't
just
make Aegon the heir, and it's
He's
like
trying to be too progressive.
but I think, of course, it was very controversial. But I think if he kept on cementing it, like he did it like 20 years ago, and then expected everybody to just remember and follow it, he didn't like cement it enough for even after he had his child. Yeah.
I know, and I'm saying like I know Rhaenyra should be heir, like she should be, but like if you think about him from like the king's perspective, the person ruling before him, like it should have been a girl, but or it should have been they have two.
Rhaenys.
Yeah, it should have been Rhaenys, but it's him, and it's like he can't just say that his daughter should be heir when he has a son, just because he wants to. When literally like 30 years prior, they wouldn't allow that.
That's why the Greens rushed to get him in front of thousands of people.
I know, so I'm saying
because
like, all this could
they
have
know
been prevented if Aegon had just been heir. And
Yeah,
the
but he's a
king-
little
the
shit.
king should have done that.
He's a
I
little
know.
shit.
He shouldn't be king.
See, I disagree. I think it goes back to when he said that Rhaenyra should be queen. Aegon wasn't even born yet. I think it's his decision to have a child again with Alicent that screws everything up. If he never had a child with Alicent in the first place, there would be no question. It would just have
Correct.
to be Rhaenyra, right?
And
No,
when
That is
like-
Otto's doing, by the way.
that's Otto's doing. So I
Well,
think
he would have
At
had to
the-
get married no matter what.
I don't know.
At the hunt, when the Hightower brother, like Otto's brother, is like announcing him and stuff, it's like you should shut that down. Be like, no,
yeah,
like
he didn't say shit.
yeah.
Yeah, he should have
Don't
shut that
forget.
thing down. But he was just like, okay, cool. Rhaenyra needs to get married. That's fine. It's like, no. And then he had her. We talked about this in the last podcast, but he didn't even really trust in Rhaenyra. And that showed to everybody else. Like, she was still cupbearer in episode like 2 or 3. I'm like, she needs to be doing a lot more. It's not until like later in the age where their relationship starts to grow that he's like, yeah, she is the one. She is the one that is promised whatever. But it comes way too late. And by then, people have really cemented themselves behind Aegon and the Hightowers and everything. It's tragic because he's trying his best. He loves his family so much, and they love him. It's just, it's super tragic.
Yeah, and also we have to remember that Viserys is not the best with decisions because even just to begin with the whole Rhaenyra situation, like that idea didn't come from him. It came from Otto, and Otto just planted that seed in his head. He ran with it, and it just keeps coming back to the whole thing that he on paper naming Rhaenyra is a good decision, but you're not doing anything to make sure that everybody's gonna respect it even when you're not here anymore.
That's the thing. He wasn't doing enough. He needed to be
He
constantly
was too
supporting her.
optimistic for his own good. He's like,
He needed some Rhaenyra t-shirts every day or something. Like, come on.
Well, also Otto needed to have never came back as Hand. Like I
Correct.
really think
that's another thing.
I really think if Otto hadn't come back, then I don't
Crisis
know if
sort of
Alicent
averted.
would have still gone after the throne.
Yeah, is there more information on that in the books, Edgar, in terms of Otto coming back? Because I felt like Viserys would have had been like, isn't there anybody else? But he just comes back in the next episode and he's like, oh yeah, his Hand again. I'm like, is that because he's too weak?
Yeah, from what I remember, there's not much of a discussion. It's almost like, I guess, bring him back because he was like decent, I guess, at his job or whatever. But going back to all the way back to episode 1, I think Viserys' biggest mistake was not having Daemon as his hand, because Daemon might be like even more radical and extreme than he is, but at the end of the day, he's one of the few people that actually wants to protect his brother from all of the leashes, as he calls them in the pilot. So that's another factor.
That's
that
true.
goes
He
into
never
play.
kept him close enough. Not to Damon's partially, absolutely at fault for
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, he basically kept his enemies close, and his family he just pushed it
Okay,
away.
with everything Damon
Good
did
point.
though, like I really don't
That's
think
true.
he should have been the hand.
I mean,
But-
yeah, would Damon even have liked? He keeps saying like he wanted to be with Viserys, but would he have liked the day-to-day stuff that comes
Well,
with being
and
the
look at
hand?
the reaction
Yeah.
now. Look at his immediate reaction following all this situation.
It's
He
always war,
he wanted to
kill
plunge
everybody.
into war. Not saying they shouldn't, but they were about
That
to
was-
risk it all right off the bat without figuring out anything.
That was so fascinating in terms of him. Like, that's what I love about episode 10 is that duel between him and Rhaenyra, not physically, but just like in terms of how to prep for war. And even if they want to go to war, she's over here screaming from childbirth and he's completely ignoring it, whether it's giving him like trauma to what happened with his wife that died in childbirth or even Viserys' wife. It's like, maybe he didn't want to go through that again. But even then, he's using it as an excuse to just plot ahead through war, regardless of Rhaenyra's wishes. It was so fascinating.
See, it's crazy how everyone like roots for Damon. Like he's not a good guy. Like Damon's
No.
Well,
not a
and
good
that's
guy.
why the
and
whole-
I really
The whole thing, that the drama on Twitter of like, oh my god,
He choked her.
he choked her. Like, he's a bad person. Of course, their marriage was going to break at some point.
Yeah, have we forgotten murders that he's done?
yeah, he
Uh,
killed
He just
him.
killed
what
his
happened to the
last
last one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Rojas.
No, but I really wish they had shown us more of his and Lena's relationship and
I agree.
Rhaenyra's relationship, because
Yeah.
we don't know like how their relationships are with
Progress.
one another. And I really think if they had made like, I don't know, I feel like they should make like if they made Rhaenyra his one like soft spot, or like they made it so like he like
Well,
I know
she definitely
he-
still is.
like they're like,
but-
oh, he'll do anything for her, and it's like, well, he will, but he also has so much of his own self-interest that like he won't do anything for her because he's selfish. Like he wants to do things.
That's
for
what makes
himself.
that last scene so
Yeah.
interesting, is
And
because
that's why I hate that he chokes
you
her.
see his guard is completely let down that last scene when he's walking up too. They're
Oh my
both
God.
distraught,
He's distraught. He loved Luce.
which
Yeah,
I
Luke.
find so fascinating.
Yeah, it's
Well-
interesting. He's such a self-interested character, but he does have a soft spot a little bit for Rhaenyra. I mean,
And his
going
da-
back,
I
his
think
other
he
daughters,
does. I
yeah.
just wish.
I
it
think
was
he just
more,
had an
like,
outburst.
I wish it was more like extreme.
Yeah.
Like I
Okay.
wish, like I would root for Damon a lot more if it was like, oh, Rhaenyra's his world. He'd do anything for her. He would never like even like choke her. Like I don't know. I just felt like that
Mm.
made me like.
I think
like him.
in that
He pulled a
moment,
mannequin.
I know, right? I think
I don't
in
want to
that
cut you
moment-
off, right? I
Yeah,
don't mean
go
to cut
ahead.
you off, but I just want to give
Yeah.
Trey and Jess a moment to give them their final thoughts on their
Yeah, we're
opinions
gonna
on the
probably
show.
head out soon.
Okay.
So, guys, anything you guys wanted to talk about before you leave us?
Just that I am happy like to have Game of Thrones in my life again. I feel like it's been a little bit. I am optimistic about the rest of the show moving forward. And what did you think? I enjoyed watching it with you, explaining every character.
Yeah, I feel like how I am with Star Wars, like with Andor, for example. I'm like explaining the things to her, and then with this, she's explaining things to me, so it works well.
A lot of pausing.
Yeah. But no, it was good. Like I liked it. I'm not like a huge fan, but I haven't seen anything but this. So like I haven't like really gotten into the world yet. But this season was really good. Like I was excited to watch it. I felt like by the end I really had an understanding of things. I don't know the dragons' names, but
I don't really either. They're
Yeah.
a bit.
Well, I think it's cool
But
because this
it
show
was
is
good.
so small scale compared to Game of Thrones. So you really got the small family. I mean, there's obviously scale as it.
Well, I've
goes
seen
on.
like the first 6 episodes of Game of Thrones, and
Yeah.
that was like after I started watching House of the Dragon, and I felt like House of the Dragon season 1 was a lot quicker than Game of Thrones season 1. So when I was watching Game of Thrones, I was like, I'm just like not interested. So I need to like come back to this after I finish House of the Dragon, because I feel like it's a very slow build in season 1 of Game of Thrones. I think I've seen like 6 episodes.
Get to episode 10. You won't be disappointed.
Episode 9.
Episode 9.
sorry.
But yeah, anyway, Trey, Jess, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at the Traynator. I have a movie podcast. It's called Mile High Cinema. You can find that anywhere where you find podcasts. That's on Twitter. I'm at 5280 Cinema. And I also have a Star Wars podcast, Skywalking Through the League. So, yeah.
Nice.
And I'm sometimes on those shows. Or you can follow me at Jessica Schloth on Twitter.
What about Letterboxd, though? That's your favorite?
It is my favorite. I haven't been watching enough movies to like plug that. I feel
Yeah,
I've
she
been
made me go
busier.
see Black Adam by myself. She wasn't ready for the freaking hierarchy to change.
The hierarchy.
Whoa.
And it did. All right, it did. You missed out.
I'm
We're gonna
happy
go.
for you.
I'm going for Kelly's a way bigger rock fan than I am, so
It was great. I had a great time. I texted Carson right after that. It was the beach bum of superhero movies.
obscure reference.
But yeah,
Thanks
thanks
for
for having
having
us.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you for coming.
excited to see what one Sean has to say.
I totally forgot he's looming in the back.
I'm not
Sorry,
looking forward
man.
to it, but
he died, bro. Oh no! Like, I actually doubt that he's even watching it. He's probably just gonna
Probably
like
not.
look up spoilers on Twitter and just
Yeah.
tweet weird.
go
shit.
from there. But anyway,
Yeah,
guys,
but-
thank you for coming. And
thanks for having us.
hopefully in the future.
Peace
Bye.
out. Peace out.
But yeah, anyway, where were we? We were talking about Damon, Viserys, Rhaenyra, their relationship.
Yeah,
I wanted to add on
Mhm.
what Kelly said because I really do agree that they really do try to make Damon as this very like almost villainous character in the show when
Really?
I feel like you could add way more fairly good stuff about him.
There was stuff that was cut, right? Like there was
Yeah,
a couple
like the
scenes
scene, yeah, with his daughters, like
with the daughters,
and,
and then I heard
Yeah,
there
we're
was
not gonna see any of that.
there was a scene cut from the finale of where there's a more explicit thing where he leaves the war table and goes into the room and like puts his hand on Rhaenyra's shoulder, like discovering the baby, the miscarriage, and like just like a more of a genuine embrace of like helping her through that pain. At least that looked like what it was from the description.
Oh, I
But,
didn't hear about that.
So yeah, I feel like there's definitely those moments they could have lay
And
a
I think
crutch on.
I think he needs them because everyone's like rooting for them, but they're rooting. I don't know,
They're rooting for the
them because
character
they're, like,
that
hot. They're
exists
not-
on the purview of
They're
the
not
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're
Yeah,
not.
I don't.
rooting
I
for
don't
him.
think
It's like-
from my perspective, I don't think they're completely making him villainous. Though I still think they're nailing the gray aspect of him, like especially in the beach episode with him and Rhaenyra. Like he's not really supremely villainous in that one. He's always had kind of like that weird stuff going on for Rhaenyra. He's even then when they're kissing in episode 4, I think he's the one that pulls away from her. It's some of those things. I don't think they're completely making him villainous. Even killing Vaymond, like people, that was like a good hero moment for Rhaenyra. He was defending her honor in that scene.
Yeah, maybe villainous was the wrong choice of words. I think a better fit would be like they're focusing more on the dark
Violent.
side of himself instead of the quote unquote light, in a sense.
Yeah.
But
I could feel.
I mean,
that.
I still love the character, but
Yeah,
because-
he's a good
but
character.
maybe that's me because I know more about him in the books. Especially like I don't think the show mentions it, but like Otto like always tries to make a point about he's like power hungry or whatever. Like in the books, Daemon is the one who raises an army to support Viserys during the Council of 101. So similar to what he's doing right now with Rhaenyra, which would be a cool parallel if we would have seen something like that back in the pilot. But yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting character beat. Maybe in season 2 they'll go more into like, but maybe not because season 2 he's supposed to be pissed.
And we never
not
get that
really.
world building because they're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is happening in the step zones, and of course we get the one battle, but
Yeah, we don't see enough of it.
we're way more focused on the family drama of just inside the locations.
Yeah, and I do think Daemon picking up the crown, however, not like in the script as it may be, like I think Daemon picking up the crown to help the series did a lot for people to show his humanity,
Yeah.
even if they
Yeah,
didn't
That's
show. Yeah,
That's like the climax of his relationship with his
Totally.
brother, which is great.
exactly.
Well, I really like that, but I still think him and Rhaenyra, they could do more to show us like
Yeah.
those moments between them.
Well, yeah, because again, there's a hidden 6-year time gap in there somewhere where
Oh yeah.
they already have their kids, and
yeah, we don't even see their little kids really ever.
Yeah, they just say, "Hey, here's Viserys and what was the other one?
Joffrey or whatever.
No,
Aegon.
Aegon.
Aegon the third.
Aegon
Yeah,
the
Joffrey's
third.
the other.
Wait,
brunette.
Joffrey's the strong
Joffrey's
one.
like the 6-year-old brunette.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They showed him a
That poor
they
little
showed him
boy.
in one scene.
If you can get a dragon too,
You can get his
everybody gets a
brother's
dragon.
dragon. Oh,
yeah.
my God, that's
Ooh, hello.
Yeah, he needs a dragon.
Yeah, he gets Vermithor.
That would be hilarious. I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm so curious. Who the heck is gonna
Who
ride?
the heck is gonna ride that? Yeah, I'm curious.
My question is, who survives at the end of all this?
No, you're
No.
not. You're not looking. Well, obviously nobody, but
Well, obviously somebody has
Is-
to be the
is
answer.
there-
because who does
Somebody has to be the
the girl
ancestor
in
to
Game of Thrones come
Daenerys.
from?
Yeah,
The Mad
right.
King.
right.
I already
Who
kind
does
of talked to you about this, Evan, about how
Of course you
there's
did.
a-
I don't remember.
yeah,
Jesus Christ.
about like there's like Game of Thrones, I think it's season 3 or whatever, where they talk about how this war ends and Joffrey is talking about it. So technically, you
Yeah.
guys already know how
she
it ends.
gets
You just
locked
don't
in
remember.
the dragon pit and eaten or something. He says something like that.
Not exactly like that.
I just want to know what this fire and cheese is. I feel like I'm doing the Dune tooth meme with you, Edgar, all over again.
I know, Edward keeps talking about it. I'm like, I gotta read this fucking book already. Yeah,
And
I'm
it's gonna
definitely
be hard
read
not
the
to,
book.
even though it's basically like an appendix sort of history like of 3 different random people. So it's not gonna be like dramatic, but it will be like more like I don't know. But I'm gonna be tempted because we gotta wait 2 years. So it's
I'm
like,
definitely reading the book as soon
Yeah.
as possible. Like after Star Wars or whatever, I'm definitely binging this book as quickly as possible. Probably in a couple months. Yeah.
I read all the books.
yeah. I have
But
the
yeah,
first
I'm
two.
very curious. I liked what episode
Okay,
6
okay.
through 10 did with Rhaenyra and Alicent's like differing relationships. They became even more of a focus in these couple of episodes. I love what Alicent had to struggle with in terms of being the wife to Viserys, caring for him as genuinely as she did, but also having Otto just like leeching off of her, having Larys leech off of her. It's just a very interesting dynamic that she has with.
Feed
She
Jade.
sees Rhaenyra as more free than her in a sense.
Yeah.
And that's why she's resents her, I think, in a lot of ways.
Totally. And then her faith
Yeah.
in her religion, trying to go back to support that.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about this show compared to Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is more like it's a war between 5 different houses that don't have much love for each other, and now we have this House of the Dragon where it's like one singular family split into 2 sides, and this
Right.
is why I don't understand the complaints of Luke dying being an accident, because like it doesn't matter how much you might not like your family members, they're still family. You're not gonna wanna like actually like painfully hurt them. Like what
They
what
were
we
still
saw in the
training in
finale.
the yard together. They were still around each
Yeah.
other.
and that's another layer of the tragedy. If you would have left these kids alone, like they would have probably grown up as brothers, and
Yeah, which
They
makes the
just can't
tragic
do that.
send off where the older one's like, send us. And he's right, but also she has to acknowledge him sort of. She says it as much in the behind the scenes. She has to acknowledge them as men for the first time.
She should have said the Raven, so I'm sorry. Like, did Sis think nothing bad was gonna happen? She's like, oh.
Yeah, she was so innocent in that way, like contrary to Damon. But yeah, she was so innocent. Like, oh yeah, I'll send the children.
She wanted to, again, this is the tragedy of it. She wanted to believe that the oath her father made for her to be the heir
Matter.
would matter as much as those people making that oath to her and her father, which it didn't. It just
Yeah.
sucked because people are fucking shitty and turn their tides based on what is most advantageous right in front of them.
Well, I
Even-
think she.
Yeah. Go ahead. No,
Well, I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, I think she also like sent her sons like literally not even like thinking anything bad would happen. Like,
Well,
not
she
even
said you're gonna
thinking
get a
that-
warm welcome.
Not
blah,
even
blah, blah.
thinking that like Alicent's side would be out to do anything, and it's like, man, they want to kill you. Like everyone besides Alicent wants like you and your family dead. Like, does she not
Exactly.
realize that?
But,
She does.
yeah, it's so tragic. But even then, like Luke was so close to coming home safely. If it wasn't for Aemon. And even then, Aemon didn't want to kill Luke. So it was these little small circumstances that just spiraled out of control. I think even
I
Aemon
thought
didn't want to kill
originally
Luke.
I thought he just got the dragon, and I thought Luke was falling, and Aemon was going to get the choice to swoop in and save
Oh
him
my gosh.
to further complicate it. But no, they just
That'd have been
fucking-
crazy. Luke's just falling and Aemon's like,
Yeah, because there's nobody else there. Like, and you're just gonna watch him fall all the way down. Then the death is really on your hands.
wow. That'd have been dark. Deleted scene probably.
Carson was like looking at like the like dragon scraps. Oh, is Lucerys falling? I'm like, no, he's dead. It was chomped to bits.
He said,
I've gone back because over Twitter I was like going frame by frame. I'm like, is his head like head first in there, or like did he dive in? I don't know. I thought he was gonna jump or something.
He's inside Vagar. Let me out.
like
I'm
Pinocchio.
chilling. Yeah,
Pinocchio.
Oh man.
Oh,
Season
God.
2, trailer 1, he's like alive.
The bells. It's the bell sound from the
Yeah.
Andor trailer, but
He just opens
Lucerys inside the.
Aemon's like, oh shit, we're good. Thank God. I was so scared, man. No.
Yeah, the funny thing about the ages thing about like sending people like young kids to other places on their dragons is like one of my favorite funny moments that are not necessarily to be intentionally funny, but they're funny in the books. In the first Game of Thrones book, they're talking about how Ned and Catelyn, they're talking about how Rickon is almost gonna be 5, and basically Ned wants him to like send him to like training because he's not gonna be a man, and like
Wow.
he's gonna be a man soon, even though he's barely 5.
Yeah, they're built different in Winterfell.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to meet this Kragon or whoever this is.
Kragan.
He sounds like a fascinating character. I've seen like just a couple illustrations that fans have done of him on TikTok or whatever.
Good old
he
House
seems
of the
like a
Dragon
character.
TikTok. How are they handling it?
The algorithm, man.
Oh boy.
Every week, as soon as you pull off, Twitter's popping. TikTok, everybody's talking about it. It's insane.
I bet. Yeah.
It's-
Yeah,
it's
I really, I just want to say I'm very curious to see, because we didn't get that much from Aemon, but I want to defend what you said, Edgar, in terms of him accidentally doing it, because I think I really liked that decision. It felt so natural to me. I didn't even know that wasn't part of the books or anything, because it felt so natural in terms of Vagar being so out of control from Aemon. We see them having that one sky ride, and I like what Alden said in one of his long threads. In terms of like they had that one ride and it was so amazing, but it was kind of like a power trip because he comes back, he's like, I'm the best now. I have the dragon. Your mother's gone. It's my dragon now. He doesn't really like claim it.
Yeah,
It's just
he's
his.
like drunk in power.
He's drunk in power after that flight. He doesn't really have that connection with Vagar. He just claimed it.
And I'm sure he's going to continue down this path. But I like that sort of singeing in the back of my mind of that choice or the accident, because it makes him a more dimensional character.
Yeah. Some people have had problems with that throughout the show in terms of characters accidentally doing things, whether it's Aemond and Luke thing, or Allison accidentally hearing the wrong thing. But that's Game of Thrones in general. Like there's a lot of mistakes and small mishaps that if everything went perfectly, things would go the right way. But there's all these small dialogue issues or small changes, people not doing enough, like Viserys. It's these small things that build character. I don't think it goes against their character. The people have said they didn't really like Allison as a character because she's so passive. But that's what makes Allison so interesting. She is so passive. That's what makes her so interesting. She's so passive in a world that she's desperately trying to get agency, but it's people inside her own house, her own father, her own Green Council that are going against her. That makes these characters so interesting. I really like it so much. Yeah.
Yeah. There's really one episode that we haven't really discussed yet, and that is episode 9, the Green Council.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
The feet.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Feetgate. What does that mean? For me, I read it as almost as this like, obviously this guy has a club foot, and
Wait, is that in the books? The feet.
What the feet? What we see in the show? No, it's not. But well, actually, in the books, it's implied that he doesn't actually is like he's not a cripple. He's just faking it. But I think in the show they're going for the actual like he he has a disability. At least that's how it seems like.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they go for that twist, like it would be even more like creepy.
If he opens
In the
up like
show.
that foot thing and he's like Kaiser Sose and starts walking normal, I'm like, that would be incredible. That would be wild if he just like walked normal all of a sudden. I would love that, but probably not.
I would love, like, how do you even come to that agreement with the like
Yeah, how does that start? Like, hey, you can.
I think that really shows you how, like, she's queen and she's this powerless that she has to do this in order to
get information,
to get this man to be on her side. And it's like, she is the queen. She shouldn't have to fucking do
well, not to
this.
mention the whole spy network that starts from one of her handmaidens or whatever. By the way, does the main girl in the brothel, is she dead? Because they lit the fire.
No.
Okay.
I think she was gone.
Because I'm just saying the information that she got out of that, and then he suggests like cut the snake off at the head, and then we get like a 5-second shot of the fire, but it doesn't really show anything.
No, that's another character I wish we saw a little bit more of, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just the amount of time that she got in the book, but I feel like she's one of those minor characters that could have gotten more to say or more to do in the series, because she was kind of like,
we never see her on her own. We only see her during the plot when Otto goes there, or when
Damon
or the twins are there searching
it's
for
funny
information.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because if I remember correctly, in the book, basically what happens in episode 2 in Dragonstone, like that's like the last time that we see her until like the very end, almost the very end of the conflict. She comes back to play another role. So even though she doesn't have much of a role yet in the show, she's already having more development. That she
interesting. I like that.
Which I think is good, because this show has even sort of less of the common man perspective, because we're so ingrained in this family conflict, and we're sort of just inside this castle, that I think it's good when we venture out and sort of get like. And it even makes sense when Rhaenyra's like, I don't want to rule like Ash and Bone. Like, there's still, it's so easy to get wrapped up in the drama. It's like, oh crap, there's still like people in houses. Like,
Well, that's what really hits you when Rhaenys fucking leaves the dragon pit, is because she just kills all those people.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's never really talked about. That was so weird to me.
She killed thousands of peasants, and it's like, but then doesn't have the balls to Dracarys, the Black family.
Yeah,
she's like, she's like, I can't do that. That's
it's not my war to
Sis,
start.
you just killed thousands of people.
Hundreds of people, but people like to cheer her on and say she's such a noble. Even like the writers are like, oh yeah, she does the noble thing. And
well, no, they try to say that she is mother to mother. It's not her like.
Still, again, it's a noble thing, mother to mother. But you just killed hundreds of people. It's like this is not. What are you trying to say here about Rhaenys? Like,
that really made me like dislike her character a lot more.
I really do like her. I said earlier, I like her character.
It was jarring.
And I don't even think they meant to do that. They just didn't realize that was on the purview of that scene. Yeah, because we were so focused on the drama of.
Yeah, I think they wanted a climatic, like literal explosion at the end of episode 9. So kind of big thing, episode 9, that they kind of forgot to be like, oh yeah, Rhaenys is supposed to be like this goodwill.
Well, they wanted to give her like
person.
a moment, but it's like, well, in her moment, she's just like
she killed hundreds of people. Yeah, it's like, come on.
I think. For me, that moment, I almost read. I don't remember from which book exactly, but there's this line like, "Whenever the lords play their Game of Thrones, the only people that end up suffering is the common people." And I think that scene is like the perfect example of that, because even if Rhaenys is trying to play my morals are higher than yours, I'm not gonna kill you, the people are still suffering, but that's because like they're like the monarchs, like they don't really care about them.
Structurally, they've already written that off.
Yeah,
and of course we get that dialogue too in episode 10 about, I think she's talking to the son, Rhaenyra is, and she's like, we're Targaryens are compared to more gods than men. They say that because the dragons, but we still have to. I can't remember something. She tells them that they still have to. It's when she's getting into the conversation of like, you need to swear on their religion and get into their footsteps and sort of realize that we need these allies, blah, blah, blah. But it gives you another example of sort of how they start to compare themselves to the
Well,
everyday
also
people.
everyone like
Exactly.
praised them for like saving Lenore. I'm like, they still killed this poor peasant man.
The other
and
guy.
replaced him. Like they didn't.
Nah, I
do
don't
something-
care.
They
Nah.
didn't do something good.
Yeah.
And that's the one dramatic thing that I can see Lenore playing back into. How does Rhaenys's opinion change on Rhaenyra if she knows the
Her
the
son's
truth,
alive.
the truth, the full truth, and that even as Rhaenys and Rhaenyra's relationship got better after the rift that Rhaenys had against her because of that, of her assumption that she was complicit, what does that break down if she finds out that Lenore is alive? And I can see them bringing that back in some way.
Yeah, that could lead
I
to something very touching, maybe.
yeah,
Or
I
she
I don't
didn't
think
even matter being like, you why
Cause
didn't you tell me this sooner? Like you
Didn't
Yeah.
Rhaenyra tell her I didn't kill Lenore?
No, she
She-
didn't.
She never said that?
She never said
Well,
that.
what did she say when they were talking at King's Landing on episode 6 or something? Or
She doesn't say anything. She
When they made her-
she sort of just
Yeah.
accepts the blame.
She
because-
said she didn't do it though.
Yeah, Rhaenys brings it up.
Well, she said she didn't do it.
Well, she
Yeah.
said she didn't kill him, but she didn't say he's still alive.
yeah, that
Oh,
entire
yes,
conversation is basically like Rhaenyra looking like desperate for help and
Yes.
reaching out to Rhaenys. She even right there and then it's when she proposes the marriage between
Yes.
both set of Corlys's grandchildren. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I could see that then. But yeah, that'd be an interesting twist.
Yeah. Speaking of Corlys, I love that line of history does not remember blood; it remembers names in episode 7.
Yeah.
Like one of the most iconic lines in the trailer, and it plays so well in the show.
Gosh,
It
and
does.
one of the best scenes in the finale is we finally get to see that Corlys is alive and Rhaenys is sitting there, and they sort of have a heart to heart, but also like, hey, fuck you, Corlys, you left me, dude, like for this long to fight this stupid Stepstones thing when I needed you the most. And I thought
I
was a
like
really
that scene a
well-acted
lot. That's a great scene. I think it would have hit more if we actually saw Corlys leaving her, and maybe they had a conversation before he left to go back to the Stepstones, because he kind of leaves in between the time skip, or at least during the time skip, and we're supposed to believe like, oh, he's been gone for a long time. This is how Rhaenys felt. I did like the scene a lot in the finale. I think it just would have had more emotional.
Sean's
weight.
here.
Oh, is Sean here? Put him back in.
Okay, so Aemon should probably watch How to Train Your Dragon. That's what I but,
Thoughts?
yeah.
Are you still watching?
No, I finished my homework, bro. I did.
You finished your homework, okay.
Yeah.
Are you shook?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I liked it. I really liked it.
That's
Great.
all.
Thanks
That's
for your
That's it?
input, Sean.
That's it?
That's
Gordon.
why you made us wait for
Yeah.
you.
No, I liked it. I
I'm gonna
really
go ahead and leave now. I've said my 2 cents, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, Aemon, that whole scene, I'm never gonna forget that shit. That was almost as like unforgettable of an ending as was it the 7th one where they where Rhaenyra marries Daemon, the end of that episode?
7, yeah.
Oh, that's a great
Seven.
scene.
Great
Yeah, that
scene.
was my-
Beautiful.
That was my favorite ending until this episode, obviously. So I think, fuck, I can't wait for the next one, honestly. But go ahead, continue where you guys were saying.
No, you're good. That brings the question. I wonder what was one of my favorite endings. 'Cause that's a great ending with Rhaenyra, Daemon's marriage, High Valyrian marriage. That was really touching. Maybe episode 5 had a great ending too, with the kind of awkward wedding, popcorn wedding. It's like
Shotgun, yeah.
he's just
Yeah,
crying
yeah.
in the corner. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is terrible. And then the series falls over, and it kind of tramples into what we get in episode 6 through 10 with a weaker Viserys.
You know which
Yeah,
ending
I
is
do
kind of
remember.
underrated that not a lot of people talk about?
Which one?
Episode 2, the
Second
talk
Sons,
between-
right?
Yeah, the Second Sons.
That's a great
conversation.
scene.
Yeah.
That's a great
That's a
ending.
What scene?
The Second Son scene where Corlys is like, "Yo, David, me and you, we gotta unite."
Oh,
because
yeah,
I was
yeah.
We're
gonna
the
say,
second
gonna
son.
say, seeing Corlys back was so fucking cool.
We were just
Oh,
you're reading our minds, Sean.
Yeah,
We were talking about that, so go ahead. Give us your thoughts on that scene.
nothing.
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 Or-
I thought it was really cool. Like,
Oh my God.
I mean, obviously he didn't see Daemon chop off his brother's head, and the last thing he saw was his son supposedly dying. So him coming back this mess is like he has to pretty much ally himself with Rhaenyra at this point. He doesn't really have a choice. And I like how like
Yeah.
stern
Well,
he was
he's
about it,
still against it at first though, and
Yeah.
the Rhaenys gives him the business of like, hey,
that's
she's
the
holding the
interesting-
realm together, which I thought was a really awesome point that she
Yeah.
made.
They basically positions because before in episode 7, Carlos is the one like, well, we have to support Rhaenyra like at all costs because we want to have our grandchildren in the Iron Throne, and then we come to episode 10, and then there's that switch of him being like,
Yep.
you know what, let's
I'm
just
tired.
retire, and, yeah, let's retire, and Rhaenyra's like, no, we have to.
Our
do this.
children will not be safe until this is done. Like,
Yeah, it's so fascinating because he was gone. Now he's to do all this catch up. It's kind of like a reality TV, like Big Brother. Like he left the game, he has to come back, and now has to
Yeah,
you have to
kinda-
tell
it's
him
right-
what's
I love
going
that scene
on.
where he comes back and he's like, they're just like discussing the politics of who has to ally with Targaryens right
Oh.
now and stuff. That was a great scene.
Great scene, Sean, because it's a total parallel of Viserys coming in to support Rhaenyra,
Yes.
and then you see Corlys coming in with his cane.
It's like the boost of like adrenaline that
Yeah,
table
yeah.
needed to like
Yeah.
Yeah.
get through.
He comes in like,
It's
you
like-
have my fleet now. You're the biggest fleet
Yeah.
in Westeros on your backs.
And we'll cut off the shipping ports. Let's
I
go.
was like, oh shit, this war's gonna be over.
This is gonna be quick.
It's
Granted,
like
I know we
Rhaenyra
have, like, 4
understands that
seasons.
They actually have a fighting chance now, you know, with the fleet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like I know there's 4 seasons of material here. It can't just be easy as like you're cut off with your grain and economics.
No,
like,
speaking of that,
be
speaking
that
of, we were talking about the common people and sort of that whole aspect. That could be interesting if they play into that. If King's Landing sort of rises up against the Greens in any way, I don't know if that actually happens. But if they don't have food and shit, like, I would be pissed. Like, like you're fighting this war on your own. We're starving.
I didn't even think about that. Like,
You know?
is that plan still going to go through after what happens to Luke, or is she going to change plans?
I don't know. Is there gonna be a rash dragon attack
That's
on
what-
King's Landing immediately in
Oh,
season 2?
Shit.
I can see that happening.
That would be a baller opening. Edgar, don't
That's
say
probably why they
shit.
showed
No, I'm not
much
saying
of,
anything.
King's Landing, like the poverty of King's Landing, the everyday regular people. Maybe
I
to
would-
build up that idea.
Yeah.
See, it's funny because I said that would be baller, but even though I hated what Daenerys did in episode 9 of season 8, or whatever that was.
No, I'm just saying
Well,
they would
it's
go
not
right
like-
to the Red Keep.
No.
I feel like there's gonna be a standoff, even if they just fly there and they're like, "This is fucking." I don't know what they're gonna do,
They
but
can't just fly. Vhagar. See, this is why every dragon scenario I'm thinking of, I'm like, there's fucking Vhagar. There's
Dude,
nothing
Vhagar
they
does
can
not give a
do.
fuck.
Vhagar's gonna
Vhagar's
be there.
just-
but if I'm okay, maybe they get this Vermithor or whatever.
Or what else? Thor.
If they have Vermithor, Caraxes, Cyrax,
Melees.
Cyrax, yeah. Cyrax.
Melees.
Melees.
Alias, which is Rhaenys' dragon, right?
If they roll up
Nice.
6 dragons, 6 of
Yeah.
the biggest
It's a wrap.
versus.
Versus
That's the
Vhagar.
that's
But
the
they're like
interesting
all
thing about
their size is the same amount of size as
Yeah,
of
with
Vhagar.
Vhagar.
That's
Combined,
that's the
yeah.
cool thing about the war in the books is that yes, the blacks have the most dragons, but the greens have Vhagar, and it's always the X.
Of course they
factor.
have fucking Vhagar.
Dang it. Why
I
didn't
really
they?
wish I read Song of Ice and Fire now just to like see described how big fucking Vhagar is in that book and compare it to the TV show.
Yeah. So is Vhagar just introduced in Fire and Blood?
I mean, the Fire and Blood starts with Aegon the Conqueror. So yeah,
And
Yeah.
Vhagar's Aegon's dragon, right?
Vhagar is Visenya's.
Visenya's
dragon.
dragon.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And there's another third dragon from that era, but that dragon years ago.
Who is Aegon's dragon?
Aegon, Valerian,
Valerian. Oh, da. Yeah.
Valerian the Black.
Kind of like off topic,
What
but
if-
when Damon was choking Rhaenyra, I had imagined myself in her position.
Oh, God.
Jesus Christ! Oh my God!
Here we go again.
This is why we really
Doctor Who?
Yeah. Yikes. Not a great. But I want to go back to that because Sean, we
Yeah,
did
we
talk
did
about that
discuss
scene
it.
a lot.
Yeah.
Some people
It was a
like
great
Kelly. Kelly didn't like it. I felt like it was surprising, but not surprising.
Yeah, the thing to me about
yeah.
that scene is that I get the idea of the scene behind it. Like, I'm not against it. Like, I'm not like some people on Twitter that are like going to war for it. But like, to me, like, you remove the choking part and the scene remains the same. It's the same conflict. It's the same character dynamics. It's the same conversation. It's just like I don't know. It felt like they added it for maybe a bit of a shock value element. I don't know, but again, it doesn't bother me as much as other people as it does as other people. But
Yeah, it goes into a little complaint I had with Rhaenyra. Not really complaint, because maybe I think that's the point for Rhaenyra, and it's very tragic in a sense. But everything's just happening to her in the finale. It's
Yeah.
like she gets the early birth. I forget what it's called. Or the child dies on her,
Child dies.
and then she is like, she doesn't want to go to war. She wants to do full on peace. But then Luke dies on her. The crown is given to her. Like a lot of things are just happening around her. It's not until the
Pretty
very
shitty,
end where she's just like, okay, now you assume, given the glare, that now she's going to make a stand. Oh, which I forgot to mention this. I did like how in the finale, Rhaenyra is kind of taking up a bit of Viserys's rulership style, at least a little bit, in terms of like wanting to be all about peace, which is very different from how we talked about her in episode 1 through 5, where we're like she's very active. In episode 2, she was like, just send the dragons. In this one, she's like kind of taking a point from her father, Viserys, whether it's good or bad. I mean, to Daemon it's bad, but for her, she's like, I don't want, like you said earlier, Edgar, I don't want the realm to fall to blood and ash. I don't want to rule in fear. Just because I have these dragons, just because I have these nukes, doesn't mean that we can just completely
Use them.
bombard them. Which I think is why we get the Daemon and Rhaenyra choking scene, because he's upset at her for not showing that emotion. They're like, the king, they are trying to kill you, and you're not showing any emotion. Why am I the one that has to start the war? Why am I the one that has to threaten the King's Guard? Like Rhaenyra isn't really.
And she just wants to
too much.
she wants to consider what Viserys told her that her role would be.
Exactly, like she wants to protect the realm from the fear in the north. Like she's still thinking about that, which is another interesting thing because Aegon, the Aegon the Conqueror, was like, "Let me take over Westeros in order to protect them against, you know,
The White
his
Walkers.
the White Walkers." But he created this chaos of like being the king, and now everybody's striving to be the next, not Aegon the Conqueror, but just striving to be the king of Westeros in its entirety. Like he
That's
started
the
the
great-
whole like, hey, there's this one king who's going to be in charge of everything. It's like you
that's the
started
great
this
thing
Aegon.
about that's the great thing about that entire prophecy. We discussed it on the previous episode. Is that it changes your perspective in the entire history of this world, especially of the Targaryen history, because then you start to like wondering, like, okay, if the Targaryens have been keeping the secret from king to king, what does this mean for like Aerys the Mad King? What does it mean for Maegor the Cruel? Did they do these terrible, awful things because they were trying to do to it for good reasons? Who knows? But that's just another added layer of the history of the Targaryens that is even I would even say better than what it's on Game of Thrones or even in the books, because none of this is like mentioned, even though it comes from
No.
George. But
It adds a lot of depth. It's a small thing that adds a lot of depth and intrigue. And again, going back to the Daemon and Rhaenyra scene, he's so upset at her for not showing emotion towards the war, and he's also feeling betrayed that Viserys never told him about the Song of Ice and Fire. It's just another thing, even after Viserys' death, that he's still dealing with the death of his own brother. That like, oh, my brother kept something from me. Rhaenyra's doing all this, and she's not showing emotion. I think that all builds into that outburst because we don't see Daemon really have that moment to himself to talk about Viserys' death, because he goes straight into war mode, calling Alicent, you know, the C word, and just fully going into anger.
Yeah, and he
Because-
immediately assumes that they killed him, by the way.
Exactly. He doesn't have time
Yeah.
to grieve, which I think goes into the whole him being so upset at Rhaenyra, because he's like, you're not doing what needs to be done, and he's still grieving in a sense. So it's a little bit grayish, but yeah, very complicated scene
I love
there.
that
Yeah.
he was just so ready to cut off Otto Hightower's head right then and there. It was so bad.
That was hilarious. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
ready. And again, another parallel, right? Again, that was episode 2 where Rhaenyra flies in through the volume
Through the-
uh, on Dragonstone. Another beautiful set.
I
Still,
will
it looks
say
beautiful.
that this shot of the volume, the bridge, looked 10 times better because of the sun. I think it was more like cloudy in the sunset, so you couldn't really
Yeah.
tell. I
Also, the
loved,
stuff in Store Sand is it's the volume, like the
yeah.
Baratheon like throne. That's all the volume.
Oh, that was the volume. I could tell it was volume. Well, you can't
The
tell. But it was
shot,
really
that
good.
shot of Luke walking out to his dragon in the storm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
Over there.
the whole scene where he's in the rain and then he gets up above the clouds. That shit took me to How to Train Your Dragon. I don't know why. That just,
Again, we mentioned it earlier, Sean, but Vagar in the clouds above Luke, like Jaws,
Yeah.
is stunning. Stunning.
yeah,
work.
like
It's a
like
horror
the
movie.
silence of the dragon as well. He didn't even make a sound, like when he first found out that he was above him.
Mhm.
That scene where he's like colliding like a stealth bomber, like a military aircraft. It was so cool. I
Yeah.
love that.
Going back
Yeah.
to the bridge scene, another parallel that I wanted to point out is that we last week in episode 9 we had Rhaenys getting the chance to like quote unquote end the war by burning the greens, but she didn't.
Yes.
And then in this episode 10, we have Rhaenyra having the chance of just cutting off the head of the family of Otto, and she doesn't go for it. So it's kind of like contrasting each other. Like one side could have ended the quote unquote ended the war, sorta, not really, but
Oh, what do you
and-
think would happen if she killed Otto? Would that have changed anything?
I think like at the end of the day,
Both
right
things,
now,
I think.
Allison is like taking the charge, but Otto is a lot
Trying
of the
to.
brains. He's the originator of this plan.
Yeah.
So you lose that piece, what happens? You just start
Yeah.
playing in your head with those ideas.
Yeah, I mean Otto pretty much is the king. In a way. He's only playing the strings, right?
Exactly. And going back to episode 9 and everything being so tragic as this whole first incredible season was, this is a season built on tragedies and misunderstandings.
Yeah.
Because I think even Aegon, episode 9, says like he kind of he likes Rhaenyra. He doesn't want to steal the crown from Rhaenyra. He doesn't even want to be king. They're dragging him, kicking and screaming. I think Rhaenyra and Aegon have a decent relationship. Like, right? It's like, what is Rhaenyra to Aegon again? Edgar is like aunt or something like
No,
that?
they're brothers, half brothers.
Half brothers. Oh yeah, duh. Okay, yeah, you're right. Half brothers and sister. But it's just interesting because I think they have a decent relationship. Aegon wouldn't ever want to kill Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra would never want to kill Aegon. But both these figureheads, the queen and now the king and Aegon, are both thrust upon this war based on things that are out of their control. Of course, especially out of Aegon's control, because they literally drag him to become king until he's in front of the masses. And even Rhaenyra, she wanted to be queen, but she didn't want to go to war with Aegon. So it's just very interesting how these two figureheads, and Rhaenyra and Aegon, are now leading a war that neither of them wanted to begin with, or wanted to start to begin with.
Yeah, that's another point to the whole like people like complaining about Luke's death being an accident, because kinslaying in this world is frowned upon a lot. It's basically like if you commit that, like that's basically like a curse on yourself and your family. So that's another factor why these people don't want to go straight to war with one another. That's why Allison and Rhaenyra are trying to approach it from a diplomatic angle rather than straight war as Daemon wants, or even Otto. So that's another point.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Two things. First off, like with Aemond, like he's smart enough to know, like what Edgar just said, in terms of kingslaying is awful, and he would be ruined for that. But I think it's his emotions. It's the what makes it so interesting. It's the what was passed down to him from Alicent and Otto in terms of like the fear, not the fear, but just the anger, the separation between him and Rhaenyra's family. They grew up so close, but based on Alicent literally yelling at her children to separate from Rhaenyra, or they will kill Aegon, or they are so dangerous, or whatever. And of course, most of it for Aemond is mostly on like not jealousy, but just like the pain of what happened to his eye or whatever. But it's still just built upon like this guy was groomed by his mother to feel a certain way towards Luke, and that was all built from the parents, which is tragic in and of its own self. But then, secondly, what I was going to say is that I wonder how different this would have been if Alicent was the one that came to King's Landing. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier with Kelly. But yeah, Sean, like if Alicent was the one to come to Rhaenyra on Dragonstone, sorry, yeah, that'd have been probably very different. I
Most
wonder
definitely.
because they're friends. You know,
They would've-
like
I mean, that whole painting that he gave to Rhaenyra.
yeah, that page from the
Kind of
book.
like that's set in stone for that temporarily that moment. That she doesn't want to go to war, obviously, right? Because that like made her reconcile her friendship.
And also
but
we
of course,
we
she's
have
still set on going to war.
yeah, we also have to remember that episode 9 and 10 basically take place a couple of days after 8. And last time that we left Allison and Rhaenyra, they were like attempting to actually like make up. Like that's why they're not wanting to go to war, because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want to like fix this. They want to fix their relationship, which makes the whole Aemon and Luke thing even worse, because like there's no coming back from that.
They were so good.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to see Alice's reaction to what Aemon did and how she'll punish Aemon.
I wonder if we'll even get that, or if they'll just get right into
If
it.
the-
Just gonna
if they'll
right
go-
into
if
it.
they'll time
I can
skip
see
it.
the dragon just fucking going into King's Landing. I can just picture that season 2.
I'm so yeah. There's so many different ways they could go here. Like, are they going to go straight to King's Landing or?
I think they're gonna ally with the Starks first and all the other.
Yeah, that's right here too. Like, we'll get some Stark action, which is fun. Like, we haven't been to Winterfell at all since
Yeah.
2019, so it's been a while. So I'm excited to wait till 2024 to see Winterfell again. But yeah, I mean, just going back to episode 9, because I think episode 9 might be my weakest episode of the series for me in terms of like the pacing. But I did like the character work in episode 9 a lot. I love the character work for Allison, and I love the character work for Otto. I think some of the pacing was a little bit messy in episode 9, but I loved what happened with Allison. I loved everything that happened with her waking up with the Green Council, her still feeling like a tug of war between her and Laris in a way, where she's showing him the feet and everything. It's just all very fascinating. And again, she had that great talk with Rhaenyra in episode 8, but then she's the one pleading for Aegon to be king, which is a huge slight against Rhaenyra.
How was episode 9 your least favorite? I don't understand that. I love that one.
I mean, I don't know. I think for me, it was just the pacing. There's a lot of things episode 9 had to do in terms of like the Eric and Auric stuff that just kind of happened. And then certain things with Otto. I felt like it wasn't as tight thematically as the other episodes for me. I think, especially episode 8. That's
the best.
8's just peak. I will continue to listen to the theme that plays when Viserys is looking at his family. It's like
it's perfect.
It's the best scene in the entire series. Top 5 for Game of Thrones history for me. It's just the song's beautiful. They're dancing. They're smiling.
Episode 8 has the best music, I'd say.
Oh yeah, for me, it's just episode 8 just hits on all fronts. I was in tears like rewatching it. So.
The thing that always gets me is I don't know who it was. I think it was the writer Sarah Hess, or I don't know if it was Ryan Condon. I don't remember who it was, but them describing the scene of Viserys entering the throne, like them describing as he's not walking to the throne, he's walking to her, meaning Rhaenyra, and it's incredible.
It's incredible. Again, we talked about this in episodes 1 through 5, our last podcast, because he had such an up and down relationship with Rhaenyra, where he was like, he didn't trust her. She was going through her rebellious phase. And he was even having that beautiful conversation with Alicent overlooking the fire during the hunt. Like, did I make the right decision? Did I do the right thing here? And then to have that fast forward to episode 8, where he's walking to Rhaenyra to defend her because he feels like he did make the right decision. As much as part of the decision-making was on Otto's part, I do think a lot of it came from Viserys in the end, for episode 1, where he made Rhaenyra queen. I think a lot of it did come from him and making up for Aemma, his wife. And he really did love and trust Rhaenyra, which makes the ending with him talking to Alicent so fucking tragic when he's just talking to her about, you are the prince that was promised, as if he's talking to
now that you
Rhaenyra.
say, Evan, this show is like the definition of why build up and slow character development matters so much in the end in terms of payoff.
Yeah, I mean,
same with Andor, of course. Like this is season 2. If you just jumped right into the fucking war with the Targaryens, wouldn't have been as impactful, obviously, right?
It would have been completely different. Yeah,
there's another version of the show where the show starts with Viserys dying, and and going
That
straight
would be
into the
horrible.
war.
That would be
Yeah, wouldn't work.
Buzzing it
Not-
like we're on a reality show. Okay.
Wouldn't work.
Red button.
Bob.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because it's not interesting because it's a peaceful time. It's interesting knowing that it's going to go to a time of war.
Yeah, and maybe that's why I love this series so much. I know some people have some issues, and
me
I
too.
think there are some certain character relationship issues. But I think the character work for the main characters, and this series was mainly about Viserys, Rhaenyra, Alicent, mostly, with Daemon there as well, and Otto as well. But those three were kind of like the linchpins for why we are having like the House of the Dragon or the war, the Dance of the Dragons. I mean. And I think their character work was just phenomenal. I think it was genius to have the last two episodes be Rhaenyra focused and Alicent focused because they are the two main characters of the season. I like how they got each of their episodes to have a clear arc while setting up season 2.
Besides Rhaenyra and Alicent and Aegon, even who do you think will have the most focus in season 2?
That's a good question.
Well, Edgar.
I would love if-
I know, Edgar. What do you know?
I mean, I
Edgar?
know.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
out of the main kids, like who's like, because they were really setting up, obviously, to those characters to grow into their own with the time skips. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
curious
it's funny
about
for-
taste.
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that because, like, I could tell you, but what I know is as much as you because the
Okay.
book is basically like an outlines. You just get the bullet points. You don't really
Mhm.
get to expand on what happens. But
Yeah.
personally, for me, I would really like more like character development for Reina and Bela, those two characters
Oh.
specifically.
1,000%.
Yeah, Rhaena
Yeah.
for sure. I think
I'm like-
Rhaena has fantastic moments so far.
Yeah, I'm like, which one is which in each scene? I have no idea what the difference. I think the hair might be a slight difference for
Yeah.
them. But that's another small criticism for the show. Like, they are kind of crucial. They're Damon's children, and we kind of hear zilch from them. They're like there to support Luke and Jace in a way, which I don't really like. I want them to have their own say, which I think
Yeah.
Rainey is having them sit on that council in the finale was maybe the first step, hopefully, for them to
Yeah,
have more screen time in season
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, well, I know that eventually they do have bigger roles to play, but
Okay.
I just really do hope they get more development in season 2 and it doesn't just jump into their big moments and just like move to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, granted, given what you said about Ryan and what he done with season 1, he's given these characters that might have had a small role, kind of like what's up, Tyler?
No.
He's given characters that had a small role, like Msaria, a bigger role, or some other scene. Is Laris bigger here in the show than in the books, Edgar?
Who?
Laris, the club front?
Laris is still a pretty significant character in the book, but he does be getting a little bit more development here in the show. I mean, everybody is. Even Allison. Allison is like treated as a straight up like your typical stepmom villain in the book, and here is more of a actual friendship.
That's what I hear, and I'm like, I'm so freaking glad they didn't go the super evil Rhaenyra must die thing, because if it's anything, like if their past is anything that we've come to know, given episodes 1 through 5, her being so determined to kill Rhaenyra just wouldn't click for me. I'm so happy that Olivia Cook and Allison in general, the writers, made Allison so not sympathetic, but understandable in terms of like, this is mostly the sins of the father with Otto, and it's also mostly her being a bad mother to her children based on what Otto did to her. And this is what the struggle is. These are the barriers that Allison is dealing with, even though Allison is making a lot of like wrong decisions by supporting Aegon over Rhaenyra. It's just very interesting. And I like having these discussions about Allison that we wouldn't have if Allison was so like anti-Rhaenyra. She must go. That wouldn't.
She's
click
gonna have
for
her
me.
second thoughts for sure. Like I thought that's where the show was going. It would just go to her completely.
had to drop him a
Rhaenyra.
secret note.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna go to her completely fucking hating and despising Rhaenyra after the episode where Aegon's eye was cut off. But the second they made up at the dinner table or after that scene, I was like, "There's no way they're gonna go to war now. There's no way they can fucking do that to us, right?" And then obviously this happens, and it's like I don't think Allison's immediately gonna like her response is gonna be like, "Oh, we have to get rid of Rhaenyra now because she's gonna come after us." She's still gonna try a diplomatic solution. I feel like.
Pain.
Oh, that's the pain of it all, because
Yeah.
it's so fascinating because earlier in the season, she figured that like Rhaenyra wouldn't kill me when Otto was in the rain telling her. Also, one of my favorite scenes when Otto was like pleading to her like Rhaenyra will come to kill you, and Allison's sitting there chilling in the rain like, no, she wouldn't. I believe Rhaenyra. And then now she's
Also,
like,
the
yeah.
the great thing about that scene is that what Otto tells Al that Rhaenyra is gonna do, he's the one who's trying to do in episode 9.
Right.
It's just the hypocrisy.
Yo,
That's a great
So
point, Edgar.
hypocritical.
Otto, man.
Yeah, and like you said, Edgar, by that point, it's too late because Alicent, years later, is now the one telling her children that Rhaenyra will come to kill you. And now, with Aemon killing Luke, which, by the way, real quick, his name's Lucerys. They call him Luke, right?
Yeah.
But then it's Jacaerys for Jace. It's not
Jace.
Jake.
It's Jace.
It doesn't make sense.
I thought it said
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Right?
It's a
Am I the
Hyvalarian
wrong
thing.
one?
It's a
Am I the
Hyvalarian
wrong
thing.
one? Luce to Lucerys, Jace to Jacaerys, but no, it's Luke. Where's the K come from? Come on. It's weird. Anyways,
asking the real fucking questions here.
come on, Ryan. Let's talk about this. Come
Yeah,
on, George.
God. Did you even read the books?
Come on.
Honestly,
Come on. Okay.
Evan's like,
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, the canon. Yeah.
But I'll probably
yeah.
give us about another 20-ish minutes before we start winding down. But I wanted to discuss one thing about Aegon, and then I'll give you guys more time to discuss
Sure.
anything that we haven't talked about. But I really love, again, this is not a guy that we're supposed to like. He's a fucking asshole. But I really love his arc in episode 9 of this guy who is constantly trying to run from the position that his family wants him to be in. And ultimately it ends with him like being like, oh, like my family doesn't really love me, but you people seem to love me. You're cheering for me. I think I like this actually. Yeah, like he's getting like that like power dynamic. He's tasting that power, and he's like in his mind, he's like, okay, I actually do want to do this because
Yeah, he can step
I'm
out
fine-
all of the other distractions that has kind of plagued
Did
his
he
life
always-
and just focus on that.
Yeah.
did he always feel that way? Like, did he always not want to be on the Iron Throne? Or
He never wanted to be on the island.
No, he never won.
Nah.
He wanted to
that's the
sit
point of
down
that
drunk and, do bad things to women. that was his thing. Be a terrible wife to Helena, innocent Helena.
Yeah.
That's another character I'm very curious to see what happens in season 2. What role will she have to play in the war?
I know, and they play her off as like so dumb. Like even
I
though
wouldn't
she's
say dumb, right?
like all her lines are specifically the dragon dreams is what I'm saying. Like she doesn't get any like normal like how are you
think-
feeling character
I think the
like
most
you know
normal- I think the most normal dialogue that we get from her is when she's talking to like the nanny basically, and she's like,
Yep.
oh, if the kids start fighting about something because they're always gonna want the same thing or whatever, basically for not necessarily like foreshadowing like the war, but she's basically just talking about like something that reflects what's gonna end up happening. But
yeah, like how does she
I-
feel about her mom? Like it was very interesting to me to like to see like
Ooh, that's a great question.
instead of just like
mhm.
catching up on her every like 2 episodes and her saying some shit and then foreshadowing something, I would love to see her have a little more stuff to play with.
Yeah, I've always like ever since they started like exploring Helena in episode 6 as this like dragon dreamer or whatever. I almost always like saw her as them trying to like portray her as this like Luna Lovegood character, like this
yeah,
little
and maybe
weirdo that you're supposed to root for.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like her and Aemond are my two favorite greens for completely different reasons. Like, like Aemond's like the asshole who I really love to hate, and then Helena's just a innocent woman who's stuck with Aegon. I don't even think she wanted him to be king at all, because all the bad things that she knows that he gets up to.
Yeah, she's like, I think she's turning away when everybody's cheering. Like she doesn't want to look.
I paused it. I was like, she's turning away. Aemond's like sitting there with daggers in his eye, like it should be me, not him. Me. I'm like, yeah.
You sit here and miss my accomplishments, not yours.
I know, yeah. Where's his white cloak? So yeah, that's very interesting. I'm very curious to see what her role to play is. But yeah, I do like going off back to what Edgar said about Aegon. a character who had certain amounts of screen time, who you think is going to be like this a-hole king, but he turned out the guy who doesn't really want to be king. He turned out to be the little brother and Aemond who wanted to be king, which was a little nice twist. I like that they gave that to Aemond there when he was yelling at Kristen like it should be me. I like what Aegon is, what he's going through there, where he doesn't believe that his father really loved him. He doesn't really believe that his mom loves him. Like we know that because his mom straight up tells him, "I don't like you. You're no son of mine." So he's dealing with all these insecurities and all these like the pain of not being loved by your parents, but then he gets loved by the masses, and it's just a very tragic thing that we see happen to a lot of rulers. We saw it happen to Joffrey. So yeah, it's just very fascinating. Very fascinating with Aegon. I'm very curious to see what his next steps are as king, because again, I think he didn't want to get into a huge war with Rhaenyra. Once again, I think him and Rhaenyra were on decent-ish terms. But now that he saw a taste of what's being king, it's kind of, you can't take the crown from the beast now, right? So you can't take the crown away from him, I think, at this point. I think he really wants to keep that power.
Where does the line draw up where he stands up for what he wants instead of them able to control him as king, which would be fascinating if he sort of breaks that boundary of their control over him.
That's a great question.
I want to see that tension in season 2.
Me too. That's a great question, because that brings us to episode 9's other big dilemma between Rhaenys and Alicent in terms of like, hey, when Alicent's telling Rhaenys like, hey, join us, we could be these great advisors to Aegon. We can tell him how to rule. We'll be the ones in power because you should have been Queen Rhaenys, and we can be the ones in control. But it's still Alicent. I love the quote that Rhaenys says. Like, I think you're
want
still
to build
stuck in your cell. But
you want to build like a window to your cell, something like that.
Yeah, so it's like she's trying to gain control over Aegon, but then doing that, she's still ceding power
but at what
to
cost?
her own son. She's still ceding power to a man in Aegon, and that's something she can't really side with, despite how much Alicent truly does care for her family in her own bad-ish way, because she's not a great mother. I think it's very interesting to see how much control they can get over Aegon. Because I think now that he likes being king, he might take that step forward and do things that are a bit rash. And I'm very curious to see if Alicent can put her foot down and say what she was going to do in terms of having a say over her own son. But I think a lot of the things that she said to Aegon in terms of imbecile, you're no son of mine, might come to bite her in the ass. I don't know. I'm very curious to see what Aegon's role is in season 2. But going back to Alicent, I think also another thing about her being a bad mom is that she was so young. We saw in episode 2 with her carrying baby Helena, or episode 3, whatever, her carrying baby Helena. She didn't really want to be this mother role at such a young age.
Yeah, let's not forget, like, there wasn't like a romance. I mean, she loved him in a sense, but
yeah, she did care for him.
When it came to like romantic stuff, like she was called down to the quarters. Like it was very like she had no agency in her own desires.
Yeah.
So that's again the tragedy of this is she was gone through all of that and is now out the other end of it. Now that Viserys is gone, but now she's created a literally monster that Lord knows where this is going. So
I created a monster. Yeah, it's so tragic.
Let's just hope Otto Hightower croaks next season.
There's so many characters that I want to die. Otto, I don't want Aemon to die.
You know what? We need to talk about Kristen Cole because we haven't talked about him at all.
Let's do it. Because episodes 1 through 5, we kind of teased it.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, his arc in episode 1 through 5 is such an interesting reverse Jamie arc in a sense, where he's just like, oh, I'm this honorable guy, and our audiences loved him. I liked him a lot. And then he turned into a dick. You're like, whoa, what happened? And now episodes 6 through 10, you really see, like Michael Zapachis talked about it, you really see the thug side of Kristen come out in each one of his episodes. Like he killed the Maester, whatever his name was last week.
Lord Beesbury.
Lord Beesbury.
Who seemed like the most standing guy. Like,
Yeah.
was the one guy in the room like, hold, wait a minute, you can't do that. Like, let's think about this. Like,
Yeah.
on the fork
He's
you
the
go.
only one who's like spitting facts. He was like Viserys was like conscious like the day before. Like he fucking went to the throne to defend his daughter. Like, what are you saying
Yeah.
that now he changed his mind at the last minute before he
Yeah.
died? And it's convenient that the only person who heard about it was his wife, the mom of the king
The
that
mom
you want to
of
sit
the
on throne.
heir that you are proposing.
Yeah, like I'm not buying it, Bob. I don't really.
Not to mention, he just like follows. So it's very clear. It's again something I wish we got more development on. The scene in 5 where he's about to, sort of stab himself. To the time jump, we don't. I mean, he's just immediately. We don't get anything else. He's just by Alicent's side, and he's just sort of
I
on
think that
Team
was-
Alicent, which we get. They're like walking in the hallways and whatever. But
Yeah, I think that works for me because that last touching moment between him and Alicent in the Godswood, where he looks at her and he's like he kind of sees her as the light to guide him out of the darkness of him killing.
I think the
tunnel.
standout interesting thing from the later episodes was one, how we do the one scene I do like between Alicent and Kristen Cole is where she basically tells him that he needs to find Aegon, I think, and I can't remember what she said, but it's very like passionate and like
if whatever you felt for me before, like help
Yes.
me find my son or something like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, hello, like what's happening?
And so you
here?
sort of get like this weird thing that it's evolved past like it's not even guilt anymore. Like he's fully on her side. Like he is committed. And it's
Yeah,
also
and it's
interesting. It's
Go for it,
interesting
go for it.
watch him run around with Aemond, and then they're sort of talking, and I think he makes a line about like, women are not to be treated like this. It's like, Kristen Cole, you. So he's that same sort of hypocritical, and that's why he's so perfect for the Greens. And his sort of hatred for Rhaenyra is like way more petty than any of the Greens actually have against Rhaenyra, which is so interesting to watch because he acts like his like justifications against Rhaenyra are like this whole thing, like, oh, she didn't want to run away with me. Like, dude, you're
He has like his own personal feelings that have still like decades later carried on.
yeah.
Versus like Allison and everyone else just has beef with Rhaenyra for political reasons.
Right, and they have legit family intertwined with each other that it makes it obviously there's more beef there. And this dude is like, oh, like she wanted me to be her whore, like blah blah blah. And now I'm sad. Like
the thing that makes that even more hypocritical, which is kind of like a parallel to Otto, I guess, is that one, we don't really know what type of relationship it's actually like, sexual between him and Allison. But at the end of the day, he didn't want to be like Rhaenyra's quote unquote bitch. Then that's why he was so mad at her. But at the end of the day, he is Allison's bitch. Like he is following her around, and it's another example of just men being very hypocritical in this world.
Yeah. And he's just a terrible Kingsguard too. He wanted he was so upset with Rhaenyra in terms of him like, I did all this for you, I sacrificed my life in the Kingsguard for you, and then he subjugates himself back to being this honorable person. But then he's not, like you guys said, he's just Allison's lapdog.
he's conniving. He just sits
He's not a
there
good Kingsguard. He just kills people. Even Westerly is like, dude, what the heck are you doing? I gotta get out of here. So
And
What makes
his one pride is like training Aemond into like being better than him,
which isn't good, right? Like he's training
yeah.
these children to fight and to hate Rhaenyra's children, and then to own Dragon. Now it's like they're training these children of war.
It's like that toxic masculinity just being infused into them.
Exactly, and this is
because
why
they don't really. Viserys is obviously either sick and or caught up with everything. So we have Kristen fucking Cole of all people having to step in, and it's just
not great.
good.
And Viserys is the one watching it when he was watching the Strong Boys fight Allison's children. He's like, oh, this is This is interesting. Like, no,
Nothing's happening.
this is what you caused. You caused
Yep.
this generational trauma between these kids, and this fire and blood is going to cause chaos. And it's exactly why we see what happened in the end, where even if Aemon didn't want to kill Luke, all these things about like the way he feels towards Rhaenyra's children, his anger towards them, it just builds up, and then Vhagar takes control, and this is what happened.
Probably the character I did the most 180 on in this season, because I really did like him at first.
Who?
Kristen Cole. Like when we first
yeah.
saw him.
Everyone did. Everyone did.
Yeah.
I was shocked that they made him this bad guy. I was like, what?
I was ready from day one to hate him.
I
Really?
love Damon in all the episodes except for the first one, so I didn't want to hate on him in the first one. And then with obviously with Cole, I think it was the fourth episode or the fifth one, right, where he kind of like started becoming a dick when he killed.
He kills Laenor's
Joffrey.
lover.
Yeah, Laenor's lover. And then at that point, I just like couldn't stand him. He was like, "Fucking, what are you doing, man?"
Yeah.
Dude has such a temper. Like the guy literally went up to him and was like, "Hey, I'll keep your secret if you keep mine." And he's just like, "Oh,
And he read it as a threat instead of an agreement.
Yeah." Because he was already, of course, pissed on the boat ride over about the whole thing with Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
So
And it all adds up. It's not only him being like having this like toxic masculinity. Not only is he a hypocrite, but as you were saying, like he can't control his anger. Like even when he kills Beastbury, they make it seem as it's an accident. He just tries to like sit him back in the table, and he ends up like killing the man by quote unquote accident, whether it is or not. I think that's how it comes.
and then they
across,
keep
it
talking. They're like, "Should we move the
Yeah.
body?" Like,
Like he pulls up a sword on Westerly. I'm like, dude, sit down. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, you are not a Kingsguard. You're terrible.
was
And
he on?
he's so-
Was he on the bridge when Otto came?
In
I cannot
episode
remember.
10?
Yeah.
No, probably not, because he's like the queen's personal guard.
Was that
Oh,
Eric?
right.
Was that Eric
Right.
on the bridge then? Or was that one
I
of
would
the
assume
brothers on the
so.
bridge?
I would
I think-
assume so. Yeah.
I saw one of the Kingsguard like move. I was like, oh wait, is this one of the main characters? I couldn't really tell.
By the way, I love that Rhaenyra comes from behind them on the dragon, so confident enough to walk all the way through
Yeah.
them, then face Otto. So perfect.
And then
Badass.
take Otto's hand signet and just
Yeah.
throw it away. That shit
Throw
was
it
dope.
away.
That's seeing his peak.
That was great.
Also, another great moment with Sir Kristen Cole of being a little bitch. Episode 7 after the funeral, when he like tries to run and protect Allison, but Damon stops him.
Oh yeah.
So
No,
good. So good.
see, people have a theory that he's not even going towards Allison. He's going to take the eye himself. Like it honestly
Yeah.
looks like he's going towards.
You think so?
Like people were playing it back, and he's not going towards Allison. He's going towards the kid, Lucerys. He's going right towards him. So people are like, "Oh, like he's not even trying to go save Allison from what pull her off. He's going right to take the eye because that's what Allison wants."
That's interesting. I took it as like Kristen being like, I like you, Allison, but I'm not gonna take some kid's eye. Like,
Yeah.
isn't he the one that says like, I'm good, I don't want to do that? Like, that's a
He
bit
said
too
something.
much.
He said something like, "I'm like as your loyal servant" or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's just another great like moment between him and Sir Westerling, where he like begins to laugh when they start mocking the children as bastards, and Westerling is just looking at him like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
What are you doing? This isn't even your family. You're supposed to be neutral. F off.
You know what I
Yeah.
think? I think he'll eventually die by Damon's hand.
I want everybody in the Greens to die by Damon's hand, honestly, and Rhaenyra. Because I mean,
Makes
Damon
complete
can't kill
sense.
everybody. Damon can't kill Kristen and Aemon and Aegon. Like, how many people is
Damon's gotta die,
kill?
though.
But with the first
No,
episode,
shut up,
the first
Carson.
episode
Shut
of the
up.
jousting.
This is a tragedy. At the end of the day,
Carson.
this is about the Targaryens being whittled down
No.
to mostly nothing,
No.
which sucks. But
yeah, I forget. Like, obviously, I think it has to be Rhaenyra's line that's
that
the one
continues.
that continues. That's related to John and Rhaegar. Wait, what's his father's name? What's John's father's Rhaegar?
Rhaegar, yeah, you got it right.
Rhaegar. I got it right.
Yeah.
It just sounded so weird when I said it. Like, that sounds like a dragon. Anyways,
That's because that's also the name of Danny's dragon, Rhaegal with an L.
Rhaegal.
Rhaegal.
That's what okay, man. It's been a minute since Game of Thrones. But I'm like, Rhaegar has to be related either to, well, yeah, I guess at this point it has to be Daenerys and Aemon's kids, or Rhaenyra's and Daemon's kids,
Daemon.
right?
Yeah.
One of those blonde Targaryens has to be the one. It can't be the strong boy. It can't be Jace at this point, right?
I don't know. I don't know how it works. Because then
Jace does not have blonde
but
hair.
the gene could come back. It could be like,
unless he gets with a blonde woman or another Targaryen woman, which I don't know who else that would be. Helena, not happening. So I think it has to be between Daemon and Rhaenyra's kids, the true Targaryen.
Oh yeah, what are their names? So they're Aegon,
Joffrey. No, it's Aegon and Viserys. Aegon and Viserys. One of those two has to be the great grandpappy of Jon Snow. Edgar over here cheesing like I'm sitting here doing the biology genealogy pool over here. Like which one?
Not gonna say anything.
Okay, question for Edgar, because I've been seeing some. This is not anything, but it's like people are saying that this could potentially turn into an anthology show when the dance is wrapped. Yeah. That there's more events or big events going up to Game of Thrones. Would you like those to be separate series, or would you like to continue like House of Dragon season 5 to be like the new thing, the new event series?
It'd be so confusing if they did. Like
it would be I don't mind the anthology idea. The only thing is that it's gonna confuse like casual viewers with the same title.
Yeah, you have to change the subtitle.
Like if you want to go to Aegon the Conqueror, you can just call it like the Conquest. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, if you want to go to the Blackfire Rebellions, just call it Blackfire. I don't know, something like that.
House of Blackfire. I don't know. Yeah. House of B, Blackfire.
But also something from that one. Yeah, but also I'm pretty sure someday we're gonna see the Blackfire Rebellions just because of Duncan Egg being in development. So we'll probably see it one way or another.
Are those around the same time?
Yeah, well, I think there's like 2 Blackfire Rebellions. I don't remember which one takes place during.
So many rebellions! Jesus Christ, George, what are you doing? Oh boy.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember which one Duncan Egg takes place in, but yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. Man, there's so much. We could talk about this show, House of Dragon. That's like a High School Musical with the series.
High School Musical.
They'll do that though, because they'll be like, "Oh, we want it to like be as broad as possible."
They got to connect it to like Targaryen something, or they want it to all be like connected.
It'll just all be under the same HBO Max tile or whatever.
I'm still surprised they never called this show like Fire and Blood, like after the book. Just keep it simple.
That would be a dope title.
It's a perfect title.
Fire and Blood, episode 1. Man, that goes so hard. But House of the Dragon is
Fire and Blood is too
pretty good.
Call the finale of House of Dragon Fire and Blood. Maybe that's the title.
Oh, they got to. They have to. That's fire. That's heat.
Lit. Yeah, go picture. That's great.
But anyway, guys, as we start winding down, I just wanted to get some of your overall thoughts on the show, season 1 as a whole, not just 6 through 10, just all 10 episodes. Starting with you, Carson.
Yeah, this was as someone who's definitely let down over the Game of Thrones, sputtering out of season 8, I was immediately raptured back into this world, full force. I love all these new characters and what they've developed them as so far. I loved all the dynamics between everybody. And again, we talked about this earlier. I love that they took the time to, although could be perceived as prologue, they took the time to build up our characters for when, shit hits the fan starting next season. It's really going to be impactful because we have all this previous buildup of the characters. So that was the most appreciated element for me. Of course, the score, he don't miss.
Fantastic. He don't miss.
I haven't gone back.
How did he do
it? Did he drop the full track yet? I gotta go listen.
All of it. It's all the album.
I saw all of it.
Wait, it's all out?
Yeah, it's all out since last night.
Do we know the track with the dinner table track? What's that called?
Dinner table.
Dinner.
The one where he's looking at his family. It's the best score of the entire season.
Let me see.
The best score.
I need
Isn't
it
there?
in
Isn't there
my
like?
life.
I think there's like 40 tracks on this thing or something.
Inject it into my fucking veins. I cry every time.
No, it is actually the best music from the entire.
It's great.
It might be either Silent Sisters or The Language of Girls, but I'm not sure.
I am
Because
listening to that
the theme that plays during him walking to the throne, it's called Protector of the Realm, which is track 30, and then afterwards it's like, you know, it follows. It's
Yeah,
followed
because
by
isn't it like a
Silent
riff on
Sisters.
that theme, like in a slower version?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
I
Whatever
think
that
it's
shit is,
that-
beautiful.
yeah. But
Yeah,
anyway,
so,
yeah, Sean.
So yeah, House of the Dragon did something impossible for people who watch season 8 of Game of Thrones, and that's make them feel invested in this entire universe, care about the characters, etc. I can go on about that forever, but I'd rather just say that it did something impossible, and somehow the entire fucking world forgot about that, and it did its job. I think like I said before, the craziest portion of it is just how bold it is and how it just tells its own stories and it goes from there. Especially with episode 1, and it just feels like it's all mapped out beginning and end. Like you can see something that happens in one episode of season 1, like episode 4 will play a huge role in season 4, of the show, or season 2, and it just feels like everything is cohesive. The show is structured perfectly overall. The acting is on point. The sets are just incredible. Everything they've done with the show so far is perfect, actually. I don't think I have a single complaint about it besides maybe a little bit of the pacing towards episode 3 or episode 5, I'd say. But yeah, overall it's perfect. I'm so happy they chose to develop the characters and take their sweet ass time with the show and not just jump right into the Targaryen Civil War. Yeah, for a prequel series, it's peak. Peak.
Yeah. Before I move on to you, Evan, I just want to point out, like, no Damon singing to the dragon on the album. I'm bummed.
Damn it!
We needed it.
Yeah.
Such a good moment.
I needed that badly.
What's the like Spider-Verse album they dropped? Is it like Chris Pine or Chris somebody?
Chris Pine singing the Spider-Man theme thing.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like a whole album.
I love that.
We need the outtakes.
Yeah.
Matt Smith,
Yeah.
Matt
album.
Smith and
It reminds me of them never releasing Adam Driver singing in Marriage Story.
that-
Get the song.
Yeah.
Marriage Story. Yeah.
I'm like, how is that not on Apple Music? I need it.
Mhm.
But anyway, Evan, final thoughts.
Oh, so many thoughts. We could talk about this show for like 4 more hours if I wanted to. There's just so much to dive into with all these character relationships. But I just got to thank like Ryan and Miguel, the writers, the directors. Everybody did the impossible in terms of like having so little material to work with, but crafting such a dense and character-focused season that just builds in tragedy and desperation and intensity. And I just loved it so much. I love character-driven shows to death, and this show is hugely character-driven, very emotional. Yes, it had some pacing issues. Yes, some characters could have shined overall, but overall, I had a fantastic time watching this season. It's one of my favorite first seasons, and I was already saying that at the end of episode 5, like halfway through, I was like, this is one of my favorite first seasons of any show I've ever watched because it's instantly captivating with the younger cast, and it becomes instantly tragic and remarkable with the older cast in terms of what they have to deal with and their new burdens. I loved characters like Rhaenyra, Viserys, Alicent, their character arcs, their relationships. Some of the themes that relate strongly to Game of Thrones, but also relate strongly to their era and how they're going to affect what happens later on. There's just so many things to think about with this show. I just loved it so much. Had a great time. Yeah, fantastic.
The show structure is beautiful, man.
Thank you. Yes, that's what I got.
Android
Music all the
user
way.
using Apple Music.
Hell yes, baby.
disgusting. He literally went to
How
the Google
dare
Play. He went to the Google Play Store, downloaded an app called Apple Music,
Yep.
created an account.
Yep. Next
It's
question.
like $100,000
Next
per hour.
Yeah.
Lord of
yeah, final-
Westeros. Edgar, what do you got? Give us the ultimate
know,
fire
right?
and blood take.
Fire and Blood take. Well, for me, the show, I was excited for it. I don't think I realized how over I was with season 8 of Game of Thrones until I watched the first episode. And by that I mean like not in a bad way that I still hate the ending of Game of Thrones. Like it wasn't like that. It was more like, okay, I'm ready to move on. Like give me this story, give me these characters. I want to be I want to be immersed in this world again. And that's exactly what this show did. I think you can totally see he Ryan Condo, he's described this as his dream job, and you can tell on the screen by and in his writing. So yeah, the show is incredible. I'm finally getting to experience what a lot of people experienced during Game of Thrones, especially book readers who were like just waiting for people to watch certain episodes, certain scenes, because you just know something's gonna happen. So yeah, that's the mentality, the mind that I'm going into season 2 and onwards with the show. But yeah,
now
it's
that it's
it's
not
it,
like bullet points, you can jump into season 2 and know exactly what's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, why it happens.
yeah.
Ooh,
But
also
yeah,
the direction of this show, we didn't mention it. Of course, we got some
Miguel.
OG. Yeah, Miguel is back, but some of the female directors that stepped in this season, I think there was more.
The first 2 episodes were directed by what's her name?
There's more in this season than there was in the entire
In all.
run of Thrones.
Wow.
yeah.
So bravo to them. I think they handled these characters magnificently, and
Real
I think
quick.
episode 8 was probably my favorite directed episode.
8 and episode 4. Were
Mhm.
directed by, I know those directed by women, and those were fantastic. I love episode 4 a lot, and episode 8 too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
episode
okay.
4, 5, and 9 are directed by a woman, and 8 also. And I want to give a shout out to Gita Ben Patel. I think that's how you pronounce her name for episode 8. Fantastic debut for the show. I hope they bring her back for season 2.
Me too.
100%.
They got it.
But yeah, if that it's all for us today, Carson, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at the Film Carson. We'll be doing a fun Goosebumps special Halloween episode on My Cup of Tea or our we don't have a name for our commentaries. They're just commentaries.
Just commentaries.
That's coming up, and of course Andor episode 7. Wandor.
Episode 8 this week.
Episode 8 this week. Really excited about that. And then, yeah, just diving into some more shows as they come out. Waiting for this and Rings of Power to come back. I'm sad. My fantasy binge every week was over. It was the best. Watching Lord of the Rings
The
on
best
Friday.
feeling.
Watching watching House of the Dragon on Sundays. Life was good. But it can be better.
2 years.
So,
2 years.
2 years.
Wait for both shows.
2 years I'll be chasing that feeling. But talking with these guys makes it a little better.
Bring out Kelly. Where can people find her?
And
Like,
shout out
oh,
Kelly.
why not?
Kelly, where can they find you?
I do not wish to be found.
Kelly says she does not wish to be found.
That works.
but-
That works.
Yeah. Shout out Kelly. She has no plugs.
Sean, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at my cup of tea, or sorry, fucking.
What are you saying?
Not on that
Yeah.
podcast.
I actually did not
Betraying
mean
us?
to. Sure. Fucking. You can find me on Twitter at ccbakara, where I shit post regularly about itches that need to be scratched.
Fascinating.
Okay, Evan, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at HarrisEV9, talking all things Star Wars, High Republic. I just finished Path to Deceit, fantastic book. Yeah, tomorrow, like Carson said, we're going to be doing a Halloween special, watching some Goosebumps episodes under Nathan Rojas' channel, My Cup of Tea on YouTube, Hyperspace Hype this week as well, with Tales of the Jedi coming out this week. Very exciting. Also, Saturday, we watched, or we did a top 10 horror films of the 2010s, which was so much fun. Very fun list, very controversial in a way.
I missed out on that. I really, really would have loved to be there for that.
It was a very fun time. And yeah, that's about it.
Sean, answer.
It's a tough life.
Oh, yeah.
Edgar, please
All
clip
right.
that.
Sign us out.
Edgar, please clip that. It's so funny.
Oh, God.
Goodbye, Sean. Anyway,
That is so
you can
fucking
find me
racist.
on Instagram and Twitter at EGORTEG. You can find some of my work at Loud and Clear Reviews. I posted my final review of the show until the 2-year wait until we come back to Westeros. And I also have a couple of reviews for the San Diego International Film Festival, so you can check that out. And yeah, I mean, I guess I'll give him a shout out. I always do because why not? Everybody loves him. I guess. You can find our co-host Josh at Josh D Woodbury on Twitter. So yeah, check him out. And we will be back in a couple of probably days before Halloween to do a trick or treat commentary. So yeah.
Yes. Vote.
I can't wait.
Yes. Trick or treat.
Ah,
That
Ohio,
was such a good
baby.
movie. Only in Ohio. Only in
My
Ohio.
favorite state.
Let's
Only in
go.
Ohio.
But anyway, in behalf of the Heartbreak Feels Good podcast, and in behalf of Carson's
Allison.
cats, we'll be back soon. Probably not. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah,
She's saying Jakara says she says that. I had to mute it,
Our
but yeah.
cats have dragon names.
Mm.
goodbye.